I've been trying to gather information about you, trying to figure out the mystery of your disappearance and death. Unfortunately, after spending a few hundred years and traveling across the entire Tianxian land, I still could not find the answer. Burial of Heaven was silent for a while, then said in a low voice, "Don't worry, one day, you will know the truth. However, if you want to fulfill your wish, you must do your best to help Ji Tianqing. He is our hope." Hearing this, the green-robed old man immediately raised his eyebrows and revealed a face full of surprise. "So, this child is the successor that Master has chosen?" "That's right." Burial of Heaven said in a solemn tone. He has inherited Kenshin's bloodline and cultivated Kenshin's supreme sword art. He reached the spirit refinement realm at the age of 20, and his name is known throughout the world. If you have been outside in the past 2 years, you should have heard of his name and deeds. He is the #1 genius of the human race, the most monstrous genius of the Emperor's son, and also the youngest human domain lord. You have also seen what happened before. He was chased by demon Marshal Dark Knight and fled all the way from the northern desert to here, before falling into a coma due to his heavy injuries. His talent and aptitude are countless times higher than yours. Only he can fulfill the wish that you have not been able to fulfill. The green-robed elder listened to his words seriously. Every time he heard a story, the shock on his face and in his eyes grew stronger. When he heard the last part, he was silent for a long time before he nodded with a heart full of emotion. He sighed and said, "So that's how it is. 1,000 years ago, although I was known as a genius, I eventually became a transcendent expert. However, compared to Ji Tianqing, the difference is still too great. In all fairness, only a monstrous and peerless genius like him is qualified to inherit Master's legacy." Burial of Heaven said in a solemn tone, "It's good that you understand." The green-robed elder stroked his white beard and pondered for a while. Suddenly, he thought of something and said with a smile, "Since he is Master's successor, I will take this opportunity to give him an opportunity. 2 years ago, I took the essence of the sun and moon and 100 kinds of spiritual herbs to refine a spirit concentrating pill. This pill is a high-grade soul-level medicinal pill. It can help him strengthen the power of his divine soul, condense a divine soul Dharma I, and reach the second layer of the soul refining realm. It just so happens that his divine soul's power is overdrawn, so I will give him this spirit concentrating pill to help him heal his divine soul and increase his strength." Burial of Heaven responded and said in a calm tone, "In that case, you can go." Previously, in order to help him escape, I also consumed a large amount of vitality. I need to rest for a period of time. After saying that, Burial of Heaven flew out of the hall on the broken sword and entered the mountain under Boundless Palace. The broken sword was hidden in the 10,000-meter tall mountain. It constantly absorbed the power of the metal and stone in the mountain, as well as the rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth, quickly recovering its vitality. The green-robed elder entered the secret chamber and took out a pill that flickered with green light and was overflowing with spiritual energy. He gave it to Ji Tianqing to eat. After that, he personally circulated his energy to help Ji Tianqing catalyze the medicinal power and nourish his divine soul. Time passed quickly. Day after day passed. In the boundless world, there were only the green-robed elder and Ji Tianqing, 2 living people, and Burial of Heaven's sword soul. For the next 10 days, the boundless world was as calm as water without any waves. Burial of Heaven had been absorbing energy from the mountain to recover his vitality. Ji Tianqing was still unconscious. He lay on the wooden bed in the secret chamber, quietly recuperating. Every afternoon, the green-robed elder had to give him a type of soul-level medicinal pill to help him catalyze the medicinal power and heal his injuries. 10 days passed. Ji Tianqing's internal and external injuries were all gradually healed. Not even a trace of a scar was left. Even his divine soul injuries were also healed. Furthermore, his divine soul strength was still constantly strengthening, becoming more and more tyrannical. His strength recovered to its peak state. His consciousness was already awakened. Although he did not know what exactly happened, he knew an expert. However, he knew that an expert had saved him and fed him a precious soul-level pill to help him break through to the second level of the soul refinement realm. He naturally had to continue circulating his energy and cultivate. Borrowing the terrifying medicinal power of the divine concentrating pill, he frenziedly strengthened his divine soul strength and condensed the second divine soul magic sword. Very soon, another 10 days passed. He finally condensed the second divine soul magic sword. His strength also naturally reached the second level of the soul refinement realm. When he successfully advanced, his entire body blossomed with a dazzling white light, releasing a powerful and vast aura of a powerhouse. After a long time, the white light of his divine soul receded and the powerful aura dissipated. He opened his eyes and saw a green-robed old man standing in the secret room. The old man was looking at him with a face full of smiles. When he saw the green-robed old man, he immediately guessed that this was his savior. Therefore, he hurriedly got off the bed and bowed to the green-robed old man. His tone was sincere as he said, "Junior Ji Tianqing is extremely grateful to Senior for saving my life and giving me the medicine." Chapter 1092. You are Ren Huangyi? Ji Tianqing was stunned. He looked at the green-robed elder in disbelief. His eyes were filled with excitement. He had heard of Ren Huangye's name and legendary deeds when he was in the ancient star realm. The 1,000-year-old tomb under Dragon Mountain was the cenotaph that Ren Huangyi had built for Kenshin. 1,000 years ago, Ren Huangyi was the top genius of the Tianxin domain. However, in the past few hundred years, Ren Huangyi had disappeared without a trace. There was no more news about him. Ji Tianqing had always thought that Ren Huangyi had died or left the Tianxian continent. He had never imagined that he would see this legendary figure from 1,000 years ago in the vast Mangu mountain range with his own eyes. For a moment, he couldn't believe that this was true. He looked Ren Huangyi up and down several times before he gradually came back to his senses. Then, he suddenly remembered something else. Before he left the imperial residence, he had paid a visit to the Imperial Residence Lord. The Imperial Residence Lord had told him that if he wanted to deal with the demons, he would need the help of Kenshin's 4 followers. The Imperial Residence Lord had only revealed the 4 words Ancient Leaf Xiaoshu A about the 4 followers. In the past 6 months, he had pondered the meaning of these 4 words many times. In the end, he came to a conclusion. These 4 words represented the 4 followers. It was very likely that they were one of the words in their names or titles. There was another possibility. These 4 words represented the surnames of the 4 followers. Now that he had seen Ren Huangyi, he was even more certain of his guess. Ren Huangyi was the Yi in Ancient Leaf Xiaoshui. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing had a plan in mind. He followed Ren Huangyi out of the secret chamber and went to sit in the main hall. They chatted while drinking tea. Senior Ren Huangyi, you were also a genius powerhouse whose name shook the world. Why did you disappear without a trace for hundreds of years? Ren Huangyi stroked his beard and said indifferently, when I was young and full of vigor, I diligently practiced martial arts in order to make a name for myself and shake the world. But after 100 years, they became accustomed to the vicissitudes of the world and lost their drive. They only want to climb to the peak of martial arts, fight against the heavens, and explore a wider world. Ji Tianqing vaguely understood his feelings. He nodded and said, So, you don't care about the affairs of the world and live in seclusion in this paradise for hundreds of years? Emperor Yi nodded slightly and said, That's right. This place was located in the depths of the Mangu mountain range. For hundreds of years, very few people had set foot here, so no one would disturb this old man's peace. Moreover, this boundless world is a paradise left behind from the ancient times. It's the most suitable place to cultivate the body and mind, nurture the soul, and comprehend the grand Tao of heaven and earth. Ji Tianqing could tell that Emperor Yi had lived in seclusion in the boundless world for several hundred years. His state of mind had long been as calm as water. Fame, wealth, women, love, and enmity in the mortal world were probably unable to arouse his interest anymore. His only wish now was to comprehend the great Tao of heaven and earth and break through the shackles of the essence soul realm. After being silent for a moment, Ji Tianqing said in a solemn tone, Senior Emperor Yi, although I know that you've already stopped caring about the affairs of the world for several hundred years and only wanted to live in seclusion here and cultivate the martial way. But the situation in the present profound sky continent is becoming more and more tense and critical. 1,000 years ago, Kenshin suppressed the ancient Fiend Emperor in the Tianshan region. But just 2 years ago, the Fiend Emperor broke through the seal and reappeared in the world. After the Fiend Emperor returned to the northern desert, the Fiend race changed their previous decadent and dispirited aura and became ambitious once more, madly invading the human race, the demon race, and the water race. Moreover, the curse that had always existed in the Fiend race's bloodline was also resolved and removed. The present Fiend race, without the shackles of the bloodline curse, developed and strengthened even more rapidly. Their forces were currently skyrocketing wildly. Not long after, the Fiend race will surely sweep across the world, bringing bloody slaughter and disaster to the various races of the continent. Ji Tianqing told Emperor Yi the situation in the profound sky continent and the Fiend race in full detail. After Emperor Yi finished listening, only then did he know that the situation in the outside world had actually undergone so many changes. However, he had not paid attention to worldly affairs for hundreds of years, and his heart had long been as still as water. Even when he heard this news, he only sighed with emotion and did not have much of a reaction. Ji Tianqing looked at Emperor Yi with a solemn expression and said in a solemn tone, "Senior Emperor Yi, you also know that I have a blood feud with the Fiend race that is absolutely irreconcilable. Moreover, I have inherited the Kenshin bloodline and legacy, and vowed to exterminate the Fiend race, protect my family, friends, and the people of the human race, and return the profound sky continent to a bright and clear universe. But with my own strength, it is simply impossible to accomplish this great task, so I would like to ask you to come out of retirement and lend me a hand." Finished speaking, Ji Tianqing stood up and bowed deeply to Emperor Yi. Emperor Yi also hurriedly got up and stretched out both hands to help him up. He shook his head repeatedly and said, "Tianqing, this cannot be done. Quickly get up, this old man cannot accept such a great bow from you." Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and asked in a low voice, "Senior Emperor Yi, do you not agree?" Emperor Yi revealed a difficult expression and sighed. He said earnestly, "Tianqing, do you know why this old man has been living in seclusion here and has not appeared in the world for hundreds of years?" "Why?" Ji Tianqing asked. Emperor Yi stroked his beard and looked at the sea of clouds outside the main hall. He said slowly, "Other than going into seclusion to comprehend the great Tao, this old man is also waiting for someone." "Waiting for someone?" Ji Tianqing frowned and asked doubtfully, "May I ask who you are waiting for?" "An old friend." "Let's not talk about this matter." Emperor Yi waved his hand and sighed deeply. "As for your request, please forgive this old man for not being able to agree to it for the time being, and for not being able to come out of retirement to help you. For thousands of years, all the major races, kingdoms, and forces on the continent have risen and fallen. Things will move in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme. This is the principle of heaven and earth, the Tao of yin and yang. All prosperity and decline are determined by the will of heaven. This old man is just a speck of sand in the world, mediocre and ordinary. I am not like you, a dragon among men who can stir up the world and change the situation of the continent. Even if this old man were to come out of retirement to help you now, it would be useless. I would not be able to change anything, and I would not be able to affect the situation of the world." Hearing Emperor Ye's words, the light of hope in Ji Tianqing's eyes immediately dimmed. He thought to himself, "It seems that Emperor Ye's mentality has indeed aged after living in seclusion for hundreds of years. He seems to have seen through the mundane world. Now, he only wants to live in seclusion in the boundless world and break through the shackles of the primordial soul realm. He wants to guard this paradise and wait for his old friend to return." At this moment, Emperor Yi saw his gloomy expression and said to him, "However, Tianqing, don't worry. When your strength is strong enough and you truly need help, this old man will naturally come out of retirement and lend you a helping hand. This old man believes that day will not be too far away." Ji Tianqing was slightly relieved. He bowed to Emperor Yi and cupped his hands. "If that is the case, then I will first thank Senior Emperor Yi." Chapter 1093. Emperor Ye's reaction and attitude were within Ji Tianqing's expectations. When he was in the eastern sea's returning ruins, he had entered the Eastern Mountain residence and explored the Eastern Mountain Exalt's cave abode. From the heaven viewing record of the world, he could see the Eastern Mountain Exalt's way of life and attitude. The Eastern Mountain Exalt was a peak primordial soul exalt powerhouse. He had the qualifications and strength to stir up the world and change the situation of the continent. However, the Eastern Mountain Exalt did not do so. Instead, he chose to isolate himself from the world, observing the heavens and reading the world, comprehending the great Tao of heaven and earth, only seeking to climb to the peak of the martial Tao. Now, Emperor Yi had a similar attitude. However, he was more humane than the Eastern Mountain Exalt. He was not as aloof and cold as the Eastern Mountain Exalt. When Ji Tianxing bade farewell to Emperor Yi, he was still thinking to himself, could it be that transcendents who have lived for hundreds and thousands of years are all above ordinary people, indifferent to fame and fortune, and unconcerned with the affairs of the world? One day, if I can also reach the primordial soul exalt realm, will I also be like them, viewing ordinary people as ants, wholeheartedly seeking to reach the peak of the martial Tao? He asked himself and pondered for a while. The conclusion he came to was no. He could not do it because he had not yet severed his ties with the world, had not yet severed his 7 emotions and 6 desires. After bowing to Emperor Yi and taking his leave, Ji Tianxing turned and walked towards the door of the main hall. Emperor Yi hurriedly followed and sent him out of the main hall. As he walked, he said, Tianxing, now that your injuries have just healed, if there is nothing urgent, don't be in a hurry to return to the central continent. The boundless world is full of verdant trees and spiritual qi. It is very suitable for you to stay here and recuperate, consolidating your martial Tao. Ji Tianxing shook his head and declined Emperor Ye's invitation to stay. Senior Emperor Yi, I am very sorry. I have worldly matters to attend to and must return to the central continent as soon as possible. There are still many friends and family members who are worried about me. I have to return as soon as possible so that they can be at ease. Emperor Yi nodded and did not urge him to stay. The two of them stood at the door of the main hall. Emperor Yi looked at him with a deep gaze and said earnestly, Tianxing, I know that you have great ambitions and lofty aspirations. But you must set your sights further. Don't care about temporary gains and losses, honor and disgrace, and don't be too attached to the matter of exterminating the demon race. Your mission is not on this continent, nor is it related to the demon race. You still have a long way to go. You bear the burden of the burial of heaven and our hope. Ji Tianxing could roughly understand what he meant. Perhaps it had something to do with Kenshin's death. However, that was a matter for the future, and it was still very far away. For the time being, it was inconvenient for him to say anything. He could only nod and say, Thank you for your teachings, Senior. I understand. Emperor Yi nodded slightly. He stroked his beard and said, Since that's the case, I won't keep you any longer. That demon martial Dark Knight has already been injured by this old man and fled in panic. Now that you've returned to the central state, I believe you won't encounter any danger. Ji Tianxing nodded and cupped his hands in salute. Then, he used his soul to call out to Burial of Heaven. Burial of Heaven, it's time for us to leave. Burial of Heaven had been recuperating on the mountain peak, absorbing energy to recover its vitality. After so many days of recuperation, it had already recovered 80% of its strength. The broken sword once again became encircled by a black light, and its sharpness was threatening. Hearing Ji Tianxing's call, the broken sword flew out of the mountain peak with a whoosh and arrived in front of the main hall. Ji Tianxing put away the broken sword. Accompanied by Emperor Yi, he flew over the boundless sea of clouds and flew toward the exit of the boundless world. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the exit. Emperor Yi opened the exit of the boundless world. Ji Tianxing bid farewell to him and left through the large door of green light. He returned to the Mangu mountain range, flew high into the sky, and returned to the central state as fast as lightning. For the next half a month, he had been flying and hurrying on his way. During this time, he didn't encounter any more dangers or setbacks. At noon on the 16th day, he finally returned to the central state city safely. The warm noon sun spilled over the eternal sacred city, causing the entire city to be covered in a layer of gold. It appeared resplendent and magnificent. After a year, Ji Tianqing returned to the central state city again. His heart was filled with emotions. A year ago, I left the central state city. First, I went to the great swamp of the southern wasteland. Then, I went to the imperial court of the Eastern Sea. After passing through the ruins of the Eastern Sea, I entered the northern desert. After leaving the northern desert, I took a detour to the western wasteland and passed through the Mangu mountain range before returning to the central state city. In this year, I circled around the Tianxian continent and experienced countless dangers and battles. Fortunately, I turned misfortune into blessings along the way and finally returned safely with Yao Yao. Thinking of this, he looked at the flourishing city in front of him and was actually a little absent-minded. A moment later, he landed outside the towering city gate and stood on the wide bluestone road. He woke up Yun Yao and Ji Ku, who were cultivating in the world inside the sword, and said to the two of them, Yao Yao, Ku, we have returned to the central state. Ku, you have followed me out of the central state for a year. Your brother Kuan Wu and your parents must be very worried. You should return to the Star Moon Manor first and let them know that you have returned safely. Ji Ku also understood this point and nodded in agreement. She waved goodbye to him and Yun Yao. Brother Tianqing, senior sister, I will return first. If there is anything, contact me again. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao waved goodbye to her and stood outside the city gate to send her off with their eyes. After Ji Ku left, Ji Tianqing turned to Yun Yao and said, Yao Yao, your body and bloodline have been demonized more and more. Send a message to the Cloud Spirit Palace and tell them that you are safe so that father-in-law and mother-in-law won't be worried. Later, we will return to the Monarch Mansion and see the great Divine Master. We will ask him to help you deal with the demonization. Yun Yao nodded and said, Okay, I will send a message to the Cloud Spirit Palace now. Then, she took out a communication jade slip from her spatial ring and sent a message to Yun Zhongqi. After sending the message, she hesitated for a moment and said with a frown, Tianqing, it is not convenient for me to meet people in my current state. Indeed, her skin was faintly black and her eyes were blood red. Her hair was silver and her nails were sharp. She really looked like a demoness. Ji Tianqing nodded and opened the entrance to the Sword World. He let her enter the Sword World and stay in the peaceful Earth City for the time being. Then, he went to the Forest of Divine Steels in the city alone and entered the Monarch Mansion. After returning to the Monarch Mansion, he flew across the sky at lightning speed towards the mountains within 1,000 miles. However, when he flew into the mountains, he saw dozens of princes sitting in the sky above a towering mountain. The towering mountain was 10,000 meters tall. It was the tallest mountain in the mountains and also the core of the heaven and earth formation. There was a 5-colored spiritual lake with a radius of 5 kilometers at the top of the mountain. Dozens of well-dressed princes were sitting in the air above the spiritual lake, and they seemed to be discussing something important. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing immediately recalled the scene when he first entered the Monarch Mansion. It was also like this. Back then, he used the invisibility talisman to sneak into the Monarch Mansion and happened to see God Master Black Feather gathering all the princes to discuss something important above the Spirit Lake. Chapter 1094. Ji Tianqing could see the situation clearly even though he was still 100 miles away. More than 40 princes were sitting on a spiritual jade throne above the 5-colored spiritual lake at the peak of the mountain. Everyone was gathered in a group, like stars surrounding the moon, surrounding a dazzling golden lotus throne. A tall man in a black robe sat on the lotus throne. He was dressed simply in a black robe. His long hair was draped behind his head, and there were no decorations on his body. However, he had a dignified face, and he exuded the aura of an expert who looked down on the world. Without a doubt, this black-robed man was Divine Master He Yu. Ji Tianqing could sense that Divine Master He Yu's strength was not far from Emperor Ye's. They were both half a step into the primordial soul realm. However, Emperor Ye's strength and aura were more powerful than Divine Master He Yu's. He would definitely break through to the primordial soul realm faster. Around Divine Master He Yu sat the princes of the human, demon, and water tribes. Among them, Tai of the water tribe, Kunwu of the demon tribe, Fox Princess, and the son of heaven of the human tribe were all present. When Ji Tianqing rushed to the scene, he heard them discussing something. They were talking about the northern desert and the demon tribe. Before he could hear what they were discussing, Divine Master He Yu sensed his aura. He stopped talking and looked up at him. When Divine Master He Yu saw him, he raised his eyebrows. His eyes were filled with relief. Many of the princes noticed the change in Divine Master He Yu's expression. They turned to look at Ji Tianqing. When they saw Ji Tianqing appear, they quieted down. Their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. Obviously, no one expected Ji Tianqing to appear and return safely. Ji Tianqing stopped in front of Divine Master He Yu. He bowed respectfully and said, "Prince Ji Tianqing greets the Divine Master." Divine Master He Yu looked at him with a burning gaze. A rare smile appeared on his usually cold face. He nodded and said, "Good. Very good. You came back just in time." Ji Tianqing frowned doubtfully. Apparently, he didn't understand what he meant. At this moment, Kunwa revealed an excited expression and said with a smile, "Tianqing, I didn't expect you to return safe and sound. This is incredible." Long Yunxiao also revealed a smile and nodded. "Tianqing, it's great that you can return safely." The Grand Divine Master gathered all the princes in the mansion to discuss how to invade the northern desert and rescue you and Yunyao. "I didn't expect you to come back." It wasn't just Kuan Wu and Ji Tianqing. Fox Princess, Ling Yixiong, and the others also exclaimed in surprise. They felt disbelief and shock at Ji Tianqing's return. Ji Tianqing saw everyone's reaction and understood everything. He chuckled and said, "It seems that you all already know what happened." Divine Master He Yu nodded slightly and explained calmly, "When you left Zhongzhou, we didn't know what happened. However, not long ago, Tai Yi returned from the East Sea and brought back the news. He said that you broke into the northern desert alone to rescue Yunyao from the demonic king's lair. Everyone was worried about you and Yunyao and was discussing how to rescue you. I didn't expect you to come back." After listening to Divine Master He Yu's explanation, Ji Tianqing finally understood the reason. He turned to look at Tai Yi and gave him a grateful look. However, Tai Yi looked calm and didn't say anything. He only nodded slightly at him as a greeting. Divine Master He Yu stared at Ji Tianqing and asked, "Tianqing, did you really break into the northern desert alone and sneak into the demonic king's lair?" Ji Tianqing nodded. The many princes immediately cried out in surprise, and they all revealed looks of disbelief. "Oh my God! Ji Tianqing is too bold. I heard from Tai Yi that Ji Tianqing went to the northern desert. I couldn't believe it. I didn't expect it to be true. This guy is really not afraid of death. He even dares to go to the demonic king's lair." That's right. Not only did he dare to go in, but he also came back alive. This is a miracle. Even a soul-tempering stage powerhouse wouldn't dare to go into the demonic king's lair, let alone us princes. Everyone stared at Ji Tianqing and sized him up carefully. Their eyes were filled with surprise and admiration. Fox Princess's beautiful eyes shone brightly as she looked at Ji Tianqing from head to toe. Suddenly, she sensed that Ji Tianqing's aura was a little strange. Her expression changed and she looked shocked. "Oh my God! Didn't you guys notice? Ji Tianqing's cultivation realm seems to have broken through to the ethereal stage." Hearing her words, all the princes were stunned. Everyone released their spiritual senses to check Ji Tianqing's strength. Then, their expressions changed drastically as they let out heartfelt exclamations and exclamations. "He really has broken through. He is at the soul-tempering stage. He has reached the soul-tempering stage. Ah! Ji Tianqing has only been in the palace for less than 3 years and he has already reached the soul-tempering stage. Comparisons are odious. No wonder this guy is the #1 genius of the human race. He is so powerful. Now, he is not only the #1 genius of the human race, but also the #1 genius of the imperial palace. He is the most powerful prince. The #1 prince, Ji Tianqing, deserves the title. More than 50 princes were whispering to each other. The atmosphere was very lively. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock. They couldn't help but exclaim in admiration and envy. The place was noisy and the people were talking for a long time. After a while, Divine Master Heyu waved his hand and asked everyone to quiet down. He looked at Ji Tianqing calmly and asked in a serious tone, "Tianqing, you broke into the northern desert alone and went deep into the Demon King's lair. Did you save Yunyao?" "Yes, I did." Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a worried look, "But her situation is not good. I was about to report to you and ask for your help." Divine Master Heyu nodded and said, "It's good that you saved her. As for the other things, we will talk about it later." In the past 6 months, the demon race has been growing rapidly. They are gathering their army and attacking the demon race and the aquatic race's territories. The demon race has even attacked the border of Zhongzhou several times, trying to invade Zhongzhou. Today, I have gathered everyone for a meeting. I am going to persuade the 3 races to join forces and attack the northern desert demon race. Tianqing, you have been in the northern desert for a long time. You must know something about the demon race. Tell us what you found out so that everyone can be prepared. Ji Tianqing shook his head and said seriously, "Great Divine Master, we can't rush to attack the northern desert. We have to think about it in the long run. Since ancient times, the demon race had been cursed by the legendary goddess. Now that the curse has been removed, the demon race has lost its shackles. That is why they can grow rapidly." Chapter 1095. Regarding the bloodline curse, Divine Master Heyu knew something. However, many of the princes present had never heard of this legend, so they knew nothing about it. Hearing Ji Tianqing's words, everyone was surprised and confused. They then started to discuss among themselves. Divine Master Heyu frowned and said seriously, "If this news is true, then we're in big trouble." Ji Tianqing nodded and did not say anything else. Divine Master Heyu pondered for a moment before he made a decision. He said to the princes present, "Everyone, Ji Tianqing and Yunyao have returned safely. The rescue plan is cancelled. Also, the situation with the demon race has changed. The 3 races' joint attack on the northern desert will be put on hold for now. After I've made a decision, I'll inform everyone. Now, let's go back and cultivate." After the meeting was dismissed, Divine Master Heyu looked at Ji Tianqing and sent a voice transmission to him, "Tianqing, you've just returned to the imperial residence. Go and settle your own business. After you've settled your business, come to the Black Feather Palace to find me." Ji Tianqing nodded silently. Then, Divine Master Heyu turned into a stream of light and flew up to the sky, returning to the Black Feather Palace. The princes also stood up and sent him off. After Divine Master Heyu left, they dispersed. Tai Yi stood up calmly and looked at Ji Tianqing. He nodded and flew away with the other princes of the water race. Long Yunxiao, Kuan Wu, Fox Princess, Ling Yichuan and the others were not in a hurry to leave. They all stayed. Everyone came to Ji Tianqing and asked him about the situation with concern. Kuan Wu was the most anxious. He asked with concern, "Tianqing, where's Cuckoo? She left with you. There's no news about her until now. Is she back?" Ji Tianqing nodded and comforted him, "Kuan Wu, don't worry. Cuckoo has been following me. She's back safely. When we were outside the city gate, I asked her to go back to the Star Moon Manor first. I don't want you, the Demon King and Demon Queen, to worry." Hearing this answer, Kunwu finally felt at ease. Long Yun Xiao looked at Ji Tianqing with shining eyes and asked worriedly, "Tianqing, how is Yao Yao? Just now, I heard you say that her situation doesn't seem good." Ji Tianqing glanced at him and nodded. "That's true, but you don't have to worry too much. Her life isn't in danger. I'll tell you the details later." Long Yunxiao nodded slightly. He suppressed the doubts and worries in his heart and stopped asking. Fox Princess and Ling Yichong also gathered around and asked, "Tianqing, you have intruded into the northern desert alone. How can you walk around the northern desert? How did you sneak into the demon emperor's lair? The northern desert is full of devil tribes and towns. Among them, there are countless experts and powerhouses. They are all very bloodthirsty and ferocious. Tianxing, you are really bold. Tianxing chatted with them for a while. He briefly explained the matter of pretending to be a devil, which dispelled the doubts in their hearts. Then, he bid farewell to everyone and turned to fly back to the Tianxing palace. Long Yunxiao hesitated for a moment, then hurriedly followed him and rushed to the Tianxing palace. After a quarter of an hour, the two returned to the Tianxing palace and landed in front of the gate. The Tianxing palace was still the same as before. It was shrouded in colorful spirit clouds, and the heaven and earth spiritual energy was very abundant. Over 100 guards and maids were guarding the main entrance of the heavenly palace, as well as the main roads, cleaning the palace until it was spotless. Seeing Tianxing come back, the guards guarding the gate were full of joy and excitement. They hurriedly bowed and saluted. Tianxing led Long Yunxiao through the gate and into the study room. They sat down and talked. Although the maids brought them spirit tea and spirit fruits, Long Yunxiao was worried about Long Yunxiao's safety. However, Long Yunxiao was worried about Yunyao's safety and did not have time to drink tea. After he sat down, he asked impatiently, Tianxing, how is Yao Yao? What exactly happened? Tianxing explained to him, when the Devil Emperor captured Yao Yao, he brought her back to the Devil race's holy land in the northern desert. The Devil Emperor used an ancient Devil Dao secret art. Borrowing the power of the samurai soul altar and the myriad devil blood pool, he spent 49 days to transform Yao Yao into the ancient devil blood god. From then on, Yao Yao was completely demonized. Her consciousness retreated into the depths of her soul. Her body became that of a devil woman, and a new devil soul was born. She was conferred as the devil race's saintess by the Devil Emperor. She used a secret art to send down the holy spring to all the major devil tribes. Billions of devils were baptized by the holy spring, and the bloodline curse was dissolved and removed. They were all reborn, and their talents and aptitudes were greatly improved. Hearing this, Long Yunxiao couldn't help but exclaim in disbelief. How could this be? Yao Yao hated the devil race the most. The Devil Emperor was so despicable that he completely demonized her and turned her into the devil race's saintess? Tianxing nodded and said in a low voice, yes, this is also the most painful knot in Yao Yao's heart. She hated the devil race the most, but in the end, she became the devil race's saintess. She helped countless devils get rid of their curses, and allowed the devil race to develop rapidly. After I rescued her, I helped her get rid of the devil's soul, and awaken her soul. After she woke up, she blamed herself for this matter for a long time. She still hasn't resolved the knot in her heart. Long Yunxiao shook his head and said with a face full of indignation, no. This isn't Yao Yao's fault. Why would she feel guilty? Tianxing waved his hand and said, don't make wild guesses. I know what I'm doing. You don't have to worry about it. Long Yunxiao looked at him deeply, but didn't ask any more questions. He bid farewell and left. Tianxing watched his back as he left. He frowned and pondered for a moment before walking out of the study. He first called for the housekeeper. After a few words of advice, he left Tianxing Palace and rushed to Black Feather Palace. When he arrived at Black Feather Palace, Divine Master Black Feather was sitting upright in the cold main hall, meditating silently. He walked into the main hall and stood in front of Divine Master Black Feather. He bowed and said, Imperial Prince Tianxing greets Great Divine Master. Divine Master Black Feather slowly opened his eyes and looked at him calmly. He nodded slightly and said, since you're here, tell me about Yunyao's situation. Great Divine Master, it's like this. Tianxing told him the truth and the process of the matter in full detail. After he finished, he looked at Divine Master Black Feather with eyes full of hope and asked worriedly, Great Divine Master, given Yunyao's current situation, do you have any way to save her? Divine Master Black Feather frowned and said with a grave expression, I didn't expect that the Demon Emperor's methods would be so sinister and despicable. He transformed Yunyao into the blood god. Although I've lived for countless years, I've never heard of such a thing. I've never heard of Yun Yao's situation, and there's no precedent in history. Tianqing, please forgive me for not being able to do anything. I'm sorry. Divine Master Blackfeather's words were like a bolt from the blue to Ji Tianqing. He was full of hope and expectation as he fled from the northern desert. He wanted to escape back to Zhongzhou no matter what. He thought that the great Divine Master would have a way to save Yun Yao as long as he returned to the Emperor's mansion. However, he didn't expect that even Divine Master Blackfeather couldn't do anything. How is this possible? Great Divine Master, you're knowledgeable and powerful. You must have a way. He was unwilling to give up. He looked at Divine Master Blackfeather with a pleading face and said, Great Divine Master, please help me. Only you can save Yun Yao. Divine Master Blackfeather looked troubled. After thinking for a while, he said in a deep voice, Tianqing, don't worry. I won't leave you in the lurch. Send Yun Yao back to the Cloud Spirit Palace first so that she can rest and recuperate. Miracle Dr. Bailey should be able to buy some time for her and slow down the demonization. I also need some time to read the ancient books and history books to find a solution for you. Ji Tianqing knew that Divine Master Blackfeather had tried his best. This was the best he could do. He couldn't ask for more. Chapter 1097. For the past year, Divine Dr. Bailey, Yun Zhongqi, and his wife had been worried and praying for him every day and night. They had been waiting day and night for Ji Tianqing's safe return. At this moment, the three of them were very excited and full of emotions. After entering the main hall, the three of them surrounded Ji Tianqing and asked about his well-being. Tianqing, I heard that you broke into the northern desert alone and entered the Demon King's lair to rescue Yao Yao. You must have suffered a lot and experienced countless dangers in the northern desert alone, right? Thank God, you made a trip to the northern desert and came back alive. That's incredible. Tianqing, did you rescue Yao Yao? After not seeing each other for a year, the three of them had too many things to say to Ji Tianqing and too many questions to ask him. Ji Tianqing quickly pulled the three of them to sit down and said with a smile, Master, father-in-law, mother-in-law, don't worry. I've brought Yao Yao back. I know that you've been on tenterhooks every day for the past year, worrying about me and Yao Yao. But don't worry, it's all over now. While talking to the three of them, he also observed their condition. When the Demon King intercepted the wedding procession and kidnapped Yun Yao, he severely injured Divine Dr. Bailey, Yun Zhongqi, and his wife. Bailey Ningsu's injury was the most serious and she almost lost her life. Although she survived and recovered a lot after a year of recuperation, her complexion had recovered a lot. However, there were hidden injuries in her body that greatly reduced her strength and made her look older. Yun Zhongqi looked the same on the surface, but there were hidden injuries in his body. His strength was much weaker than before, and his soul aura was also weaker than before. Only Divine Dr. Bailey still looked the same, with white hair and a weak body. Of course, he looked older than before, and his waist was hunched even more. Ji Tianqing saw this and his heart was full of pity. His hatred for the Demon King also deepened. After everyone chatted for a while, Bailey Ningsu asked, Tianqing, you said that Yao Yao came back with you, but where is she? Mother hasn't seen her for a year. Quickly ask her to come out and let Mother take a look. Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi had the same thought as well. They looked at him with hopeful eyes. Okay, I'll ask her to come out now. Ji Tianqing nodded and silently took out the broken sword, opening the exit of the sword world. Shwa! With a flash of white light, Yun Yao appeared in the hall and stood in front of everyone. Miracle Dr. Bailey, Yun Zhongqi, and his wife looked at her expectantly. However, when everyone saw her face clearly, they were stunned on the spot. Their faces were full of astonishment as their eyes widened. Yun Yao was wearing a long white dress. Her feet were bare as she stood in the middle of the hall. She was already 2 meters tall and slender, with long silver hair hanging down to her waist. In her big clear eyes, there was a pair of blood-red pupils, like the eyes of a demon. Her lips were dark purple and her skin was suffused with a black aura. Her fingernails were also black, sharp and long. No matter how one looked at her, she didn't look like a human girl. She looked more like a demon. Oh my God. Yao Yao. My daughter, how did you become like this? Bailey Ningsu covered her mouth with both hands. She looked like she was in great pain. Tears welled up in her eyes and her voice was a little hoarse. Miracle Dr. Bailey and Yun Zhongqi also came to their senses. Their expressions were very ugly. They were shocked and worried. Tianxing, what's going on? Miracle Dr. Bailey asked as he released his divine sense to check on Yun Yao's condition. Yun Zhongqi frowned and asked in a low voice, Tianxing, how did Yao Yao become like this? She's like a demon, witch? Ji Tianxing was also very depressed. He wanted to explain, but his voice was very dry. In the end, he could only lower his head and say helplessly, I'm sorry. I tried my best. The Demon King's methods are too despicable. Yun Yao looked at her parents and grandfather expressionlessly. She said in a calm voice, Grandfather, father, mother, this has nothing to do with Tianxing. He risked his life to save me. He almost lost his life several times. He tried his best. It's the Demon King. He used an ancient demon Tao's secret technique to demonize me. I became a demon under his control and worked for him. Yun Yao's voice was very calm. She explained to her parents and grandfather what had happened. In the past 2 months, she had suffered a great deal of guilt, self-blame, and inferiority. She also had a strong sense of anger and hatred. Now that she mentioned what had happened, it was no doubt rubbing salt on her wounds. But she endured it silently. She looked calm and indifferent, burying all the anger and pain in her heart. She didn't want the people closest to her to be sad, in pain, and worried for her. After a long time, Bailey Ningsu wiped her tears and stopped sobbing. Everyone quieted down. Ji Tianxing said with a serious face, I've asked the great divine master of the monarch mansion. He couldn't do anything. He could only let Yao Yao rest in Cloud Spirit Palace. He needs some time to read ancient books and find a way to save Yao Yao. Dr. Bailey nodded and said in a serious tone, Tianxing, don't worry. I will take good care of Yao Yao. I will do everything I can to cure her. Yun Zhongqi frowned and thought for a moment. Suddenly, he thought of something and his eyes flashed. He hurriedly said to everyone, Ningsu, take Tianxing and leave first. Arrange a place for him to stay and let him rest. Don't worry, I have a way to save Yao Yao. Ji Tianxing, Bailey Ningsu, and Dr. Bailey looked at Yun Zhongqi and asked in unison, what method do you have? Yun Zhongqi shook his head and said with a serious face, I can't tell you about this. Just rest well and leave it to me. After saying that, he took Yun Yao out of the hall and into the most heavily guarded secret room in Cloud Spirit Palace. The secret room was 100 meters wide and was filled with heaven and earth spiritual qi. The walls were filled with cabinets that stored all kinds of elixirs and cultivation resources. In the corner of the secret room, there was a 10,000-year-old frozen jade bed. Yun Zhongqi asked Yun Yao to sit on the frozen jade bed so that she could cultivate in peace. After Yun Yao entered her cultivation state, Yun Zhongqi took out a treasure chest from the cabinet in the corner of the secret room. He carefully undid the layers of seals on the chest and spent a quarter of an hour to open it. Then, he took out a palm-sized dark golden jade token from the treasure chest. It has been more than 20 years. I have never used this item since he left it behind. I hope he will fulfill his promise and come here. Perhaps he is the only one who can save Yao Yao. Yun Zhongqi held the dark golden jade tablet with both hands and murmured with hope. After saying that, he channeled his divine soul's white light into the dark golden jade tablet. Crack. Chapter 1098. In the dark secret chamber, Yun Yao sat cross-legged on the frigid jade bed. She was meditating with her eyes closed. Yun Zhongqi stood in the corner with his hands behind his back. He stared at the star chart on the wall and waited silently. After about 4 hours, a dazzling golden light suddenly penetrated the secret chamber's defensive formation and flew into the secret chamber. Swoosh! The golden light landed in the middle of the secret chamber and revealed the figure of a burly man. He was a middle-aged man in a purple robe with a wide dark golden cape draped over his shoulders. His snow-white hair was tied up by a dark golden dragon's tendon and draped behind his head. He looked dignified and dignified. His facial features were as tough and resolute as a knife, and his eyes were as vast as the starry sky. Yun Zhongqi sensed this person's arrival and immediately turned to look at him. After seeing the purple-robed man's face clearly, Yun Zhongqi hurriedly stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Palace Master." There was no doubt that this mysterious and powerful purple-robed man was the Palace Master of the monarch residence. The Palace Master looked at Yun Zhongqi calmly and said in a dignified voice, "When I left back then, I left behind a spirit summoning tablet. You can ask me to help you once when you're in danger. Now that I've fulfilled my promise, you can tell me what you want." Yun Zhongqi nodded and said solemnly, "Palace Master, I had no choice but to use the spirit summoning tablet. I'm sorry to have to trouble you. I'm asking you to help me tonight because my daughter, Yun Yao, has indeed encountered a problem that we can't solve." After saying that, he pointed at Yun Yao who was lying on the frigid jade bed. The Palace Master turned to look at Yun Yao. After seeing her face clearly, he immediately frowned. "Has Yun Yao been demonized?" Yun Zhongqi nodded again and explained to the Palace Master, "Palace Master, when the Demon King kidnapped my daughter, he brought her back to the Heavenly Devil Palace and used an ancient demon Dao's secret technique." After hearing the entire story, the Palace Lord's frown deepened and his gaze turned even gloomier. "As I expected, the Demon Emperor's target is the Neptunian Divine Pearl," he murmured to himself as killing intent flashed through his eyes. A worried expression appeared on Yun Zhongqi's face, and he said in a solemn voice, "Palace Lord, the Demon Monarch has transformed me into the Blood God's son, and I've become like this. There has never been such a precedent in history, and we are all helpless. 21 years ago, my daughter lost her life. It was you who saved her and gave her a new life. Now that something like this has happened, only you can save her. This junior begs you." After he finished speaking, Yun Zhongqi cupped his fists and bowed deeply to the mansion lord. The Palace Lord looked at Yun Yao expressionlessly and said calmly, "Yun Yao, even if Yun Yao has become like this, I can still save her and help her regain her original appearance. Even if she has been transformed into a Blood God's son, all I need to do is undo the seal on the Neptunian Divine Pearl and use its power to purify her demonic body and bloodline. However, you should remember what I told you after saving her in the past." Yun Zhongqi let out a huge sigh of relief inside when he heard that. However, he was still rather hesitant. He asked, "Palace Lord, are you still going to take my daughter away in the end?" "That's right." The Palace Lord said in a dignified voice, "From the day she was reborn, she was no longer just the young Palace Lord of the Cloud Soul Palace. She had another mission as well. In a year at most, I will leave the central plain with her and go to a distant place." Yun Zhongqi frowned and pleaded with a troubled look on his face, "Mansion Master, ever since my daughter married Tianqing, we've been through a great ordeal. They've been through so many life-threatening situations, and they've always been apart more than together. If you want to take my daughter away, she definitely won't allow it with her personality. I beg you, Palace Lord, to give them 2 more years and let them be together for 2 more years." The Palace Lord said expressionlessly, "There's no room for discussion. As for how you're going to convince them, that's your problem." Yun Zhongqi's face was filled with helplessness as he sighed. The Palace Lord waved his hand and said, "Yun Zhongqi, I'm going to save Yun Yao. Wait outside. Don't let anyone disturb me." "Yes, Palace Lord." Yun Zhongqi clasped his hands and bowed. He could only leave the secret room and wait outside. The secret room fell silent again. Only the Palace Lord and Yun Yao remained. The Palace Lord strode over to the glacial jade bed and sent out a streak of golden light with a wave of his hand. Whoosh! The golden light flew into Yun Yao's head and immediately silenced her soul. She fell into a deep slumber. Her body fell limply, and she lay on the glacial jade bed without moving at all. Afterwards, the Palace Lord waved his hands with lightning-like speed. He formed a profound seal and cast out an ancient seal. 99 ancient golden characters surged out of his palms and drilled into Yunyao's forehead like flowing water. The 99 golden characters with mysterious power entered the depths of her head and enveloped the Neptunian divine pearl. Swish. 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 The many mysterious characters revolved around the Neptunian divine pearl and quickly danced around it, releasing tremendous power. The invisible seals on the Neptunian divine pearl were removed layer by layer very soon. 10 seconds later, all 33 seals were removed. The Neptunian divine pearl's power was released, and it immediately flew out of Yunyao's head. Swish. The Neptunian divine pearl hovered in the air as it pulsed with devastating power. It shone with dazzling, icy blue light. The icy blue light enveloped Yunyao's body, making her look dreamy and blurry. The palace lord waved his hand sternly and continued to cast a technique with his soul. He formed a profound seal and sent it into the Neptunian divine pearl. The Neptunian divine pearl revolved and shone with icy blue light as it rapidly shrank. Unknowingly, 15 minutes passed. The entire Neptunian divine pearl had actually melted, turning into an extremely dense ball of icy blue light. This was a terrifying power that could destroy the world. Aside from that, there was a strand of dark purple mist within the icy blue light. The palace lord stared at the ball of blue light and murmured, "A fragment of the goddess Yaoguang's soul is sealed within the Neptunian divine pearl. If I release it and fuse it with Yunyao, I'll be able to purify Yunyao's demonic body and bloodline, as well as give her a sliver of the goddess Yaoguang's divine power. At that time, not only will she recover her original appearance, but her strength will also skyrocket with the goddess's legacy." As he said that, he continued to cast a secret technique, controlling the strand of dark purple mist to separate from the ball of icy blue light. Swish. The dark purple mist flew out of the ball of light and turned into a purple figure that was half a meter tall. This was a beautiful goddess with peerless beauty. She was like a fairy from the 9 heavens. Her appearance were actually 80% similar to Yunyao. Clearly, this was a fragment of the goddess Yaoguang's soul. When the palace lord saw the purple figure of the goddess, he immediately frowned. His face darkened as he murmured to himself, "How can this be? Even if the goddess Yaoguang's 3 souls have been destroyed, there should still be 7 fragments left. Red, orange, yellow, green, purple. This is the goddess Yaoguang's 7th fragment?" Thinking up to there, he smiled bitterly and sighed, "You really are a goddess after all. Yaoguang, oh Yaoguang, I never thought that you would still have something up your sleeves even after your death. You actually separated the 7 fragments and sealed them separately. I've done everything I could, taking every conceivable possibility into account, but I could only find your 7th fragment. It looks like apart from this Neptunian divine pearl, there are 6 other divine pearls in the world that seal your 6 fragments." Chapter 1099. The palace master was silent for a moment before he continued to cast the spell. Under his control, the purple figure of the goddess descended from the sky and entered Yunyao's body. It gradually merged with her soul. An hour later, the goddess' soul and Yunyao's soul merged perfectly. Her aura changed instantly. She became more holy and dignified, just like a goddess. The palace master cast the spell expressionlessly. He controlled the ball of ice blue light that could destroy heaven and earth. It turned into a small stream and entered Yunyao's body. The process was very slow. He had to cast the spell carefully. There could not be any mistakes. After all, the power of the ice blue light was too terrifying. Yunyao's body could not withstand it. If she was not careful, her body would be destroyed. Time passed by quietly. 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours had passed. 10 hours later, all the ice blue light entered Yunyao's body and spread to her limbs and bones. Then, the holy, pure, powerful, and mysterious ice blue light quickly dispelled the demonic power and purified her bloodline. The black gas in her skin faded at a visible speed. She regained her jade-like luster. Her dark purple lips became lighter and lighter. Soon, the black color faded and returned to its original pink color. Her silver hair was also fading at a speed visible to the naked eye, turning into a glossy black. Most importantly, her 2-meter-tall body was also shrinking and becoming slender. Soon, the demonic characteristics on her body disappeared. She returned to her original appearance. She was still the beautiful, peerless, and holy fairy who was like a goddess from the 9 heavens. The palace master stood in front of the ice jade bed. He only stopped casting the spell when he saw that she had returned to her original appearance and that the surging power in her body had calmed down. He observed silently for a moment. When he saw that Yun Yao was fine and that her condition was stable, he sent a voice transmission to Yun Zhongqi, who was outside the secret room. "Come in." Yun Zhongqi had been waiting outside the door for 10 hours. He waited from midnight until late in the morning. His heart was filled with anxiety and worry. When he heard the palace master's voice, he heaved a sigh of relief. He quickly opened the stone door and entered the secret room. After entering the secret room, he anxiously looked at the corner of the secret room. Seeing that Yun Yao had returned to her original appearance and was wrapped in a layer of light blue light, he heaved a sigh of relief. "Manor head, has my daughter's problem been resolved?" The palace master nodded slightly and said calmly, "She's fine now. However, she will be in a deep sleep for half a month to gradually integrate the power of the divine orb. When she awoke naturally, her strength would skyrocket and reach an even higher realm." Chapter 1100. In a year's time, he will take Yao Yao and leave Zhong State. Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows and revealed a worried expression. His expression became serious. Yun Zhongqi nodded silently and said calmly, 21 years ago, when he saved Yao Yao, I agreed to his conditions. No one can go against his wishes, so we must fulfill this condition. In a year's time, Yao Yao will also be taken away by him. After a pause, he said sincerely, Tianqing, you and Yao Yao still have a year's time. You must cherish it. Ji Tianqing nodded and said firmly, Father-in-law, don't worry. There's still a year's time. Perhaps things will take a turn for the better. I will do everything I can to keep Yao Yao here. Yun Zhongqi shook his head and said bleakly, Tianqing, I know you are the #1 genius of Zhong State and can create countless miracles. However, a year's time is too short. That peerless expert's strength is beyond our imagination. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly to express his understanding. He sighed inwardly, after all, he is the #1 expert of the continent. He is someone who stands at the pinnacle of martial arts in Tianxian continent. Although he knew that the will of that expert could not be resisted, he did not give up. However, he would never give up or accept his fate. He would do his best to protect his wife. After a moment of silence, Yun Zhongqi continued, Tianqing, Yao Yao is already safe and sound. However, she still needs to sleep for half a month before she can wake up naturally. Once she wakes up, her strength will reach an even higher realm. You don't need to stay here and delay your cultivation. Go back to the monarch manor first. We will take good care of Yao Yao. If there are any changes or news, we will inform you immediately. Ji Tianqing thought for a moment. Half a month was indeed a long time, so he nodded in agreement. All right, father-in-law, I will take my leave first. He bowed to Yun Zhongqi, then turned and left the secret room. Then, he bid farewell to Bailey Ningsu and Bailey Dr. Bailey and left Cloud Soul Palace as fast as lightning. Half a day later, he returned to Central State City. After returning to the monarch mansion, he did not return to Tianqing Palace. Instead, he went straight to Yunshao Palace to look for Long Yunshao. He entered Yunshao Palace. Under the lead of the guards, he entered the back garden. In the back garden, hundreds of flowers were in full bloom. The forest was dense, and there was also a small lake and a bamboo forest swaying in the wind. The environment was very elegant. There was a quaint and elegant pavilion in the middle of the lake. There were 8 maids standing around the pavilion. There was a guqin placed in the middle of the pavilion, and a beautiful woman wearing a brocade dress was plucking the strings. The sound of the zither was crisp and pleasing to the ear, melodious and mellow, causing one's mind to be clear and refreshed. Ji Tianqing recognized her with a single glance. She was the heavenly consort and Suan. Her hair was combed into a bun, and she wore a phoenix coronet and a golden buyao. In addition, the son of heaven, Long Yunxiao, was also sitting in the pavilion. He was leisurely sipping tea and listening to the melodious zither music. When the song ended, he revealed an expression of reminiscence. He gently put down the teacup and nodded with a smile. He clapped his hands and said, "The heavenly consort's zither skills are becoming more and more exquisite." This song, the Ballad of 10,000 Rivers and Mountains, made this monarch daydream. It was as if I was there, in the midst of 1,000 mountains and 10,000 rivers. I saw the great mountains and rivers of the human race's 9 regions. And Suan's beautiful face revealed a faint smile. Her eyes were gentle and sweet as she said softly, "Son of heaven, you've been working hard for the past few months. It's my honor and wish to be able to soothe your mind with the zither music." Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows. He thought to himself, it seems like Long Yunxiao and Suan's relationship has improved. Although they're not in love, they're still respectful to each other. I didn't expect Suan to have also reached the heaven origin realm after not seeing her for a year. She's changed a lot. Her expression and temperament seem to have become gentler and more reserved. She's no longer as simple and stubborn as before. This is also good. Long Yunxiao and Suan aren't bad people. If they can get along peacefully and love each other, it'll be a good thing for everyone. At this time, a guard walked out of the pavilion and respectfully reported, "Reporting to your majesty, Imperial Prince Tianqing has come to visit." Long Yunxiao and Suan were both stunned. They quickly stopped talking and turned to look outside the pavilion. Ji Tianqing walked into the pavilion. He calmly cupped his hands and greeted, "Greetings, son of heaven, heavenly consort." Long Yunxiao and Suan quickly stood up and returned the greeting. They exchanged a few pleasantries with Ji Tianqing. After both parties were seated, Long Yunxiao asked, "Tianqing, how's Yao Yao?" He asked about Yun Yao's situation as soon as they met. Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment. He slightly turned his head to look at Suan. Suan's expression didn't change. Her eyes were still calm and gentle. She didn't feel conflicted because of this. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing realized that she had indeed changed a lot. He said to Long Yunxiao, "Yao Yao's problem has been solved. She even profited from the disaster. Her strength has greatly increased. There's actually such a good thing. Then this monarch is relieved." Long Yunxiao's face was full of surprise. He asked, "Tianqing, then why did you come to find this monarch today?" Ji Tianqing glanced at Suan and calmly said, "It's still the same thing as last time. It's about the Western Wasteland." He didn't need to say anything else. Long Yunxiao immediately understood. He turned his head to look at Suan and said, "Heavenly consort, this monarch and Tianqing have important matters to discuss. You may leave." Suan bowed and said, "Understood." When she walked to Ji Tianqing's side, she stopped and bowed to Ji Tianqing. With a sincere expression, she apologized, "Imperial Prince Tianqing, several months ago, this consort heard news from the Yangon region that you had gone to the Qingkuan sect and had some conflicts with them. Those deacons and elders of our sect are all frogs in a well. They've never seen the world. They unintentionally offended you. Please don't take it to heart." Ji Tianqing was stunned. He didn't expect her to already know about this matter. She even went out of her way to apologize. Seeing her bow and apologize, he waved his hand and said with a smile, "Heavenly consort, your words are too serious. Your sect master is a reasonable person. He's a wise and far-sighted person. As for the small conflict between me and your sect, it's already in the past. Naturally, I won't take it to heart." Hearing him say this, Suan clearly breathed a sigh of relief. She smiled and nodded, "Then this consort will represent our sect to thank Imperial Prince Tianqing for his magnanimity." After saying this, she led the maids out of the pavilion. When only Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao were left in the pavilion, Ji Tianqing opened his mouth to speak. "A year ago, when I left Central State City, I was ambushed by Murong Lingfang and the 4 great dragon protectors. I fought back and killed them all. Now that a year has passed, what's the situation in Central State? What's the Murong family's reaction? Long Yunxiao curled his lips and revealed a playful smile. Back then, this monarch had said that after you left, this monarch would focus on dealing with the Murong family. The matter of Murong Lingfang being killed is no longer a secret. Countless powerhouses and powers know that it was you who did it. However, the Murong family can't find you. No matter how angry they are, it's useless. Moreover, in this year, this monarch has suppressed the Murong family to the point where it's difficult for them to move. They're already powerless to take revenge on you. I'm also unable to provide any help to Long Zai-Tian. Speaking up to here, he frowned and thought for a moment. Then, he said in a low voice, however, the Murong family's patriarch, Murong Zheng, is an extremely shrewd person. He can't be underestimated. No matter how difficult the Murong family's situation is, you still have to be on your guard. Be careful of his revenge. After all, that old man is a powerhouse at the 5th level of the spirit refinement realm. If he disregards everything to take revenge for his son, your situation will be worrying. Chapter 1101. After understanding the Murong family's situation, Ji Tianqing was relieved. The current Murong family was no longer a threat to him, so he didn't need to worry about them. He then asked Long Yunxiao, Son of Heaven, you've been secretly observing the Divine General of the West Wilderness for many years, so you must have information on him, right? Can you give me a copy? Long Yunxiao raised his eyebrows and said in a playful tone, It seems that I didn't guess wrong. The Divine General of the West Wilderness offended you quite a bit? I can give you information on Yu Tianhong, but you have to tell me, what kind of grudge do you have between you two? Ji Tianqing didn't want to reveal this matter, but Long Yunxiao insisted, so he could only tell the truth. When I was returning to the central region from the northern desert, I was chased by several demon commanders. I had no choice but to take a detour to the West Wilderness, and was chased by the demon commanders, so I fled to Mang City. I told him my identity and purpose, and asked him to open the city gate and help me force the demon commanders back. But he refused to open the gate, and deliberately pretended not to know me, and even framed me as a demon spy. Looking at his reaction, he obviously recognized me, and deliberately wanted to kill me. Fortunately, I had another opportunity, so I was able to escape the demon commander's pursuit and safely return to the central region. Long Yunxiao suddenly realized, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He sneered, This Yu Tianhong is really abominable, he deserves to die. Even if the demon race was in front of him, he still didn't care about the righteousness of the human race, and insisted on getting rid of you for the third prince. Ji Tianqing nodded, and said in a low voice, Long Zai-Tian has always wanted to kill me, I will remember this grudge, and will definitely take my revenge. However, Long Zai-Tian's status is not ordinary, and his power is deeply rooted. I can only follow the vine to find the melon, and slowly investigate and plan. That's good. Long Yunxiao nodded in agreement, and solemnly warned, Long Zai-Tian's power is slightly stronger than mine, and his methods are sinister and despicable, you must be careful. Finished speaking, he took out a jade slip from his spatial ring and gave it to Ji Tianqing. This jade slip records Yu Tianhong's life information and information, take it and slowly study it. If you are ready to take revenge and begin to act, if you have any difficulties or needs, feel free to tell this monarch. This monarch will definitely do his best to help. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly, accepted the jade slip, and said goodbye to him. After leaving Cloudy Palace, he went straight back to Tianqing Palace. After returning to the study room, he took out the jade slip that Long Yunxiao had given him and carefully read the information within it. He saw that there were tens of thousands of words of information recorded in the jade slip, all of which were about Yu Tianhong's deeds. Yu Tianhong was over 170 years old. He was at the 5th level of the spirit refining realm and was the divine general in charge of guarding the West Wilderness. The Yu family's clan was located in River Origin City, one of the 100 cities in the Central Plains. They were extremely wealthy and powerful. Back when Ji Tianqing and the 9 geniuses were fighting for the position of Heavenly Stellar Region Lord, one of them was a young genius called Yu Zhengfei. This person was Yu Tianhong's eldest son and the most outstanding talent of the Yu family's younger generation. In addition, the Jade Slip also recorded some of the important events that had happened to Yu Tianhong and the Yu family in the past 100 years. Through these events, Ji Tianqing understood the Yu family's power in detail, as well as Yu Tianhong's nature and methods. After reading the information in the Jade Slip, he couldn't help but have a question in his mind. With Yu Tianhong's strength and the Yu family's power in River Origin City, they could be considered as one of the top 10 clans in the human race. If there wasn't enough temptation and reason, Yu Tianhong wouldn't have to work so hard for Long Zitian. Could it be that Long Zitian also planted a divine venomous goo in Yu Tianhong? It's very possible. Even Duanmu Huang and Murong Zheng were implanted with divine venomous goo by Long Zitian. Yu Tianhong wouldn't be able to escape. Thinking of this, his eyes flashed with a cold light as he muttered to himself, Long Zitian, one day, I will announce to the world that you used divine venomous goo to control the 2 clans and the divine general. I will report this to the emperor and destroy your reputation and consign you to eternal damnation. At this moment, footsteps suddenly came from outside the study room. A guard walked to the door and reported respectfully, reporting to the region lord, the prince of the water clan, Tai Yi, has come to visit. Suddenly hearing this news, Ji Tianqing was startled. Tai Yi? This guy has always been arrogant and cold, why would he take the initiative to visit me? He suddenly remembered something and revealed a playful smile as he guessed, could it be that he's here for that matter? Then, he put away the Jade Slip and left the study room. When he walked into the guest hall, he saw Tai Yi standing in the middle of the hall, expressionlessly thinking about something. Tai Yi was still wearing a luxurious purple robe and a golden crown, his aura noble and resolute. After seeing Ji Tianqing, he cupped his hands in greeting and said calmly, "Greetings to Prince Tianqing." Ji Tianqing returned the greeting and asked, Tai Yi, how come you have time to visit me today? Has the matter of the water clan been resolved? Tai Yi nodded slightly and said with a serious face, currently, the demon clan's army is still gathering at the coastal border and invading our sea area day and night. However, the demon clan's army is like a group of dragons without a leader. Even if they attack day and night, they can only wear each other out and pull at each other. They can't attack deep into our sea area. Speaking of which, I have to thank you for this matter. The demon clan's army that attacked us was led by demon commander Blood Shura. After you killed Blood Shura, the demon clan hasn't chosen a new demon commander for the time being. The army is also like a group of dragons without a leader. Ji Tianqing nodded and said, although the Eastern Seas situation is not a problem for now, you still have to be vigilant. The demon clan's power is growing very quickly. Tai Yi nodded to show that he understood. He stared at him and said with a complicated tone, when you first entered the northern desert, I was full of emotions and thought that you would never return. I didn't expect you to be so monstrous. You broke into the northern desert alone to save Yun Yao and came back alive. Even God Master He you didn't have such courage and means like you. How did you do it? Ji Tianqing chuckled and said, it's a long story. Let's not talk about it. Let's talk about business. What do you want from me? Tai Yi was silent for a while, then said with a serious tone, we made a bet. If you could come back alive from the northern desert, I would be your bodyguard for a year. Now that you have done it, of course, I won't break my promise. Today, I'm here to fulfill my promise. From today onwards, I will be by your side as your personal bodyguard for a period of 1 year. Ji Tianqing was startled when he heard Tai Yi say that. He smiled and waved his hand, Tai Yi, don't be so serious. It was just a joke. Don't take it seriously. Chapter 1102. Tai Yi frowned slightly when he saw that Ji Tianqing did not take the matter seriously and treated it as a joke. He looked at Ji Tianqing firmly and said, as the heir to the imperial court of the water race, I will keep my word. I will not go back on my words. Ji Tianqing stopped smiling when he saw that Tai Yi was serious. He said seriously, all right, let's not talk about being a follower. Let's not talk about this anymore. If you're willing, let's be friends and call each other brothers. What do you think? Tai was stunned and looked at him with a complicated expression. He cupped his hands and praised from the bottom of his heart, Brother Tianqing, I had some opinions about you in the past and had some unpleasant experiences with you. That's because I'm proud and arrogant, and I'm jealous of your talent. Now that I've gotten to know you, I've seen your extraordinary talent and noble character, which makes me admire you greatly. This monarch has never made friends, much less sworn brothers, but you are an exception. From now on, you are my brother. If you need my help in the future, I will not hesitate to help. Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a smile, if that's the case, I'll thank you first. Tai thought for a moment and said in a low voice, Brother Tianqing, I heard that you killed Murong Lingfeng and the four masters when you left Zhongzhou. You were not in Zhongzhou for the past year. The Murong family could not find you even if they wanted to take revenge. But now that you are back, the Murong family will not let you go. You have to be prepared. If you want to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots, this monarch will certainly lend you a hand. The Imperial Court of the Water Race has a huge network and spies in Zhongzhou. It will be easy to deal with the Murong family. Don't worry, if the Imperial Court of the Water Race investigates, I will take responsibility. I will let the Imperial Court of the Water Race negotiate with the Imperial Court of the Water Race. I will not let you take the blame. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said with a smile, Tai, thank you for your kindness. I have just returned to Zhongzhou. I will observe the current situation and then make a plan. As for the Murong family, I don't care about them at all. They can't threaten me anyway. The Murong family was nothing to worry about. What was really troublesome for me was the power behind the Murong family. That was my real target. If we deal with the Murong family now, we will only alert the enemy and make them take precautions. Tai's eyes immediately lit up. He nodded solemnly and said, that's right. I've heard about this a long time ago. The Murong clan is working for the third prince of the human imperial court. A few years ago, Murong Lingfeng had visited this monarch several times and tried every possible means to curry favor with this monarch, wanting to rope this monarch in. At that time, I knew that Murong Lingfeng was working for third prince Long Zai Tian. However, this monarch despises Murong Lingfeng, that sissy who is neither a man nor a woman, the most. This monarch didn't give him any face and had the guards chase him away several times. Hearing the word sissy, Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed with a strange smile. Tai continued, Brother Tianqing, third prince Long Zai Tian is not someone to be underestimated. He is ambitious and ruthless. His methods are very sinister and despicable. If you want to deal with him, you have to be careful and make ample preparations. This monarch can help you gather information and investigate the third prince. This will allow you to know yourself and your enemy. It will be easier to deal with him. Ji Tianqing nodded and said, that's good. Then I'll leave it to you. Tai said solemnly, leave this to me. I'll give you an answer within half a month at most. Then, the two talked about the situation in the imperial court. After a quarter of an hour, Tai bid farewell and left Tianqing Palace. Ji Tianqing had just walked out of the guest hall and was about to return to his room. Another guard hurried over and respectfully presented a letter. Reporting to Region Lord, this is a letter sent by the guards of Xingyu village. They asked this subordinate to present it to you. Xingyu village? Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and thought to himself, is it Kuan Wu or Kuku? Why don't we meet and talk about it? He took the letter back to his room and opened it. He saw a few lines of beautiful handwriting on the letter. It was Kuku's handwriting. Brother Tianqing, Brother Kuan Wu and I have to return to the imperial court. The situation is urgent, so we didn't have time to say goodbye to you in person. Please forgive us. Several demon marshals led hundreds of thousands of demon army to attack the borders of Shihuang. They attacked cities and plundered lands along the way, slaughtering the people of the demon race. The war is urgent. Brother Kuan Wu has to return to the imperial court and lead the army with father. I also have to go back to cultivate and comprehend secret techniques. The situation in Zhongzhou is not peaceful either. Brother Tianqing, you must take care of your body and be careful. Don't worry, Cuckoo will work hard to improve her strength and become as strong as you as soon as possible. Ji Tianqing looked at these beautiful words, and Ku's beautiful face appeared in his mind. Her charming and cute smiling face. He could see Ku's determination and her longing and reluctance to part with him from the words. After a long time, he put the letter away and smiled. He sighed and said to himself, Cuckoo has finally grown up. Then, he gave some instructions to the guards and entered the secret room to cultivate. He had just reached the second level of the spirit cultivation realm not long ago and his strength was not stable yet. He had to cultivate hard to strengthen his foundation. Most importantly, he had always been thinking about the 9 swords of the burial of heaven. Since the burial of heaven taught him the 9 swords of the burial of heaven, he had only cultivated the first move, the sword drawing style. The power of the sword drawing style was far beyond all the trump cards he had cultivated. It showed him the power of the 9 swords of the burial of heaven. Now that he had settled down, he couldn't wait to continue cultivating the second move. He sat cross-legged in the secret room and communicated with the burial of heaven with his divine soul. He asked, Burial of heaven, I plan to cultivate in seclusion for 10 days. Can you teach me the second move of the burial of heaven? The burial of heaven was sleeping in the divine sword, quietly recovering its strength. After a while, it said in a low and serious tone, teaching you the second move is of course no problem, but you have to remember, don't bite off more than you can chew. You have to do it step by step. Also, cultivating the 9 swords of the burial of heaven is not suitable in a secret room. It is difficult to use. I suggest you sacrifice your divine soul and enter the Kenshin's tomb to cultivate. Only then can you achieve twice the result with half the effort. Okay. Ji Tianqing nodded and followed its suggestion. His divine soul entered the Kenshin's tomb. Swoosh. His golden sword soul entered the Kenshin's tomb and appeared in the gray and cold wasteland. The sword soul quickly turned into a human and flew to the end of the wasteland, near the 18 tombstones. Then, the burial of heaven said in a serious tone, the first move of the burial of heaven's 9 swords is the sword drawing style, and the second move is the sword piercing style. Although the name of this sword move is as ordinary and mediocre as the first move. But this is a sword that has been tempered thousands of times and merged with all the sword moves in the world. It is a divine sword that is simple. When this sword is used, a cold star illuminates the sky. Chapter 1103. The second style, sword thrust, had more than 1,000 words. It was mysterious and very obscure. Ji Tianqing memorized the sword technique's mnemonic and listened attentively to Burial of Heaven's teachings. With the experience of cultivating the sword drawing style, it was much easier for him to comprehend the mnemonic of the sword thrust style. His soul studied in Kenshin's tomb for 4 days before he finally figured out the trick and method of the sword thrust style. Then, he used his soul power to condense a sword and began to cultivate this sword technique, 10,000 swords as one. Swish. With a thrust of the sword, a cold light burst out, and the sword energy within 1,000 meters surged. The power of this sword was extraordinary, but Ji Tianqing was not satisfied. He continued to draw and thrust the sword, practicing repeatedly. At present, he was still at the beginning stage of cultivating the 9 swords of burial of heaven. He only had the form and did not have the charm of the sword intent. There was no shortcut to cultivating this sword technique. Apart from extraordinary comprehension, he also needed to practice 1,000,000 times. As time passed, Ji Tianqing repeatedly cultivated the 2 sword techniques as if he did not know fatigue and forgot the passage of time. Unknowingly, 10 days had passed. Originally, he only planned to cultivate in seclusion for 10 days, but he was immersed in cultivation and could not extricate himself. He was still practicing the sword technique and constantly comprehending, reflecting, and improving it. When he was confused and puzzled, he would ask Burial of Heaven for advice. Burial of Heaven imparted his experience and gave him many opinions and suggestions, allowing him to quickly comprehend the sword technique secrets and cultivate more smoothly. Soon, a month had passed. Ji Tianqing's soul continued to cultivate in Kenshin's tomb for a month before finally mastering the second style, sword thrust style. He stood above the wasteland, holding a white sword condensed from his soul in his left hand and his right hand hanging by his side. He looked ahead expressionlessly. He silently accumulated strength and nurtured his sword intent. A moment later, he suddenly drew his sword and attacked at lightning speed. Swish! The soulite sword was unsheathed and slashed diagonally from bottom to top, creating a shocking sword beam that was 100 meters long, slashing at the gray fog at the end of the wasteland. Swish! This sword was unparalleled in its sharpness. It truly had the power to tear apart the heavens and the earth. The sword light slashed into the hazy gray fog, immediately splitting open a huge crack in the gray fog, forming a 1,000-meter-long gully. Without waiting for the gray fog to heal and the empty ravine to be filled, Ji Tianqing continued to attack with his sword and used the second move. Piercing sword style. Swish! The divine soul-shaped sword of light pierced forward with terrifying power. Suddenly, an extremely sharp and condensed sword light pierced through the sky and disappeared. Almost at the same time, the cold light appeared in the gray fog 5 kilometers away. Shwa! The dense gray fog was actually dispersed by the cold light, and a huge hole with a radius of 10 miles appeared. The gray fog in that area actually disappeared into thin air, turning into a blank area. Moreover, the empty space created by Ji Tianqing's sword could not be healed. An invisible sword intent enveloped an area of 5 kilometers, preventing the gray fog from approaching. Ji Tianqing immediately raised his eyebrows, and his eyes shone brightly. He did not expect the power of the piercing sword style to be so terrifying. This was only used in Kenshin's tomb. If he used it in the outside world, this sword would be able to pierce through any defense. Even a soul-level Dharma treasure would not be able to block his sword. In the future, if he advanced to the primordial soul stage, this sword would be able to pierce through the sky and see the galaxy beyond the heavens. It is indeed powerful. The piercing sword style uses all the strength and sword intent, condensing it to the limit, and breaking through a point. Its power is several times stronger than the drawing sword style. Ji Tianqing murmured to himself, his heart filled with shock and emotion. At this moment, he suddenly caught a glimpse of something strange in the empty area of 5 kilometers. He hurriedly flew across the sky and flew to the empty area to observe carefully. He saw that the ground within 5 kilometers was covered in gray rock layers, which had experienced tens of thousands of years. It was simple and ancient. This area was empty, and there was nothing in it. However, Ji Tianqing discovered that there were many crisscrossing lines on the flat gray ground. Every line was a deep groove that was as wide as a palm. The marks were extremely sharp, as if they were drawn by sword qi. There are actually traces of sword qi on the ground? Could there have been an intense battle here? Ji Tianqing looked down at the ground from above and observed the hundreds of lines carefully. Soon, he discovered that the lines were not messy and did not look like they were caused by an intense battle. Someone had deliberately drawn them. Some of the lines were straight and spanned 5 kilometers. Some of the lines were curved and passed through countless lines, as if they were connected to some veins. After observing for a moment, Ji Tianqing was enlightened. I understand now. This is an array formation diagram. So that's how it is. On the gray ground within 5 kilometers, the thousands of crisscrossing lines outlined an extremely mysterious and complicated array formation diagram. Furthermore, the array formation diagram drawn by the thousands of lines was only the tip of the iceberg, a very small part of the array formation. Even more lines and patterns were covered by the vast fog. Ji Tianqing tried a few more times, using the piercing sword style with all his might, wanting to break through the fog and open up more empty areas. However, when the cold light entered the fog, it disappeared, swallowed by the mysterious gray fog, unable to open up more areas. Strange, why would an array formation diagram appear in Kenshin's tomb? Could it be that Kenshin left it behind when he was alive? But that can't be right. Kenshin's tomb only appeared after Kenshin died. He couldn't have had a tomb when he was alive, right? Ji Tianqing stared at the array formation diagram on the ground, frowning as he pondered. The more he thought, the more puzzled he became. Thus, he hurriedly used his soul to send a message to Burial of Heaven for guidance. Burial of Heaven, I broke through the fog in Kenshin's tomb and found an array formation diagram on the ground. What's going on? For the first time, Burial of Heaven did not remain silent or hesitate. He subconsciously asked, "What? You broke through the fog and saw the array formation diagram?" Hearing his reaction, his tone full of doubt, Ji Tianqing was even more puzzled. Burial of Heaven, I just learned the piercing sword style and tried to use it once with all my strength. I actually broke through the fog within a radius of 10 miles. A formation diagram appeared on the ground, but it should be a corner of the entire diagram. I can't see any clues. You know the Kenshin's tomb the best. Don't tell me even you don't know. Burial of Heaven said in a low voice, I know a little more about Kenshin's tomb than you, but I can't say I understand it. After all, after Kenshin died, I have been in a deep sleep for 1,000 years. From the first day I entered Kenshin's tomb, it has always been like this. There is only a wasteland with a radius of a few hundred miles, surrounded by gray fog. I really don't know about the array formation diagram, and I have never heard Kenshin mention it. Of course, my memory is somewhat incomplete. After 1,000 years, I can't remember it clearly. Hearing it say this, Ji Tianqing vaguely understood some things. He thought to himself, it seems that Kenshin's tomb is not that simple. Could it be that he wanted to curry favor with me and take the opportunity to rope me in? No, I know his secret. Our hatred is irreconcilable. There is no way we can reconcile. What is this bastard trying to do? Ji Tianqing held the red invitation card and fell into deep thought and hesitation, unable to make up his mind. He never thought that Long Zai Tian would actually invite him to the birthday banquet at this time. This was too strange. After pondering for a moment, he suddenly remembered that the birthday banquet mentioned on the invitation card was tomorrow. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing hurriedly called for the guard outside and ordered, "Send someone to ask around the other princes, who else received the invitation card to the third prince's birthday banquet?" The guard bowed and said, "Yes," then quickly carried out the order. Ji Tianqing waited in the room and silently flipped through the invitation card. He continued to flip through it and saw that there was a slip of paper in the invitation card. He took out the slip of paper and looked at it. There was actually a sentence on it. The handwriting was like a dragon flying and phoenix flying, and it was quite imposing. Ji Tianqing, for my birthday banquet, I have invited all the noble families and young elites of the human race. As the number 1 genius, you are naturally on the list. Of course, if you are timid and afraid, it's fine if you don't come. Anyway, I don't want to see you. Seeing the 2 sentences on the slip of paper, he immediately revealed a mocking sneer. He. Long Zai Tian, you are a prince of the imperial court in vain, yet you are so inferior and childish. Since you don't want to see me, then I have to go. So what if this is a conspiracy? You actually used such a clumsy method to goad me. I want to see what you want to do. If Long Zai Tian only invited him, he would naturally suspect that this was a banquet at Hongmen, or that Long Zai Tian had some despicable scheme. But Long Zai Tian had already said that he had invited all the noble families and young geniuses of the human race. Ji Tianqing wanted to take this opportunity to see which noble families of the human race had a close relationship with Long Zai Tian. Other than that, the Flying Dragon City was one of the 100 cities in the central continent, and was also the third prince's fief and headquarters. Ji Tianqing wanted to take the opportunity to enter the Flying Dragon City and see if he could find any clues or secrets of the third prince. In the past, he and Long Zai Tian had always been secretly attacking and fighting. This time, Long Zai Tian actually sent an invitation card in broad daylight. Clearly, he wanted to directly provoke him. How could he endure this? Of course he had to fight back. About 2 hours later, the the guard returned to the door and respectfully reporting to the domain lord, "This subordinate has already investigated the results. Other than you, most of the human race princes in the monarch mansion have received the third prince's birthday banquet invitation. Moreover, several princes have already left the monarch mansion and rushed to the Flying Dragon City to attend the banquet." After listening to the guard's report, Ji Tianqing knew what was going on, and was even more determined to attend the banquet. He waved his hand to dismiss the guard, and silently meditated in the room. A day passed quickly. Early in the morning of the second day, he left the monarch mansion alone, flew out of the central continent city, and rushed to the Flying Dragon City as fast as lightning. While he was flying, he was still recalling the information about the Flying Dragon City in his mind. The Flying Dragon City was located in the south of the central continent city, about 20,000 miles away. It was a bustling city with hundreds of years of history. The city had a radius of 100 miles, and there were dozens of towns under its jurisdiction, with more than 2 million people. Ever since the imperial court bestowed this ancient city to the third prince more than 10 years ago, this place had become his private territory. Most of his wealth, resources, and trump cards were in the Flying Dragon City. Of course, there were also many of his secrets and dirty secrets hidden in this city. Soon, 6 hours passed, and it was noon. Ji Tianqing flew continuously for 20,000 miles, and finally arrived at the Flying Dragon City. Even from 100 miles away, he could see the ancient city on the vast plains. The tall city walls made of dark brown rock surrounded the square city, standing tall on the ground. In the center of the city, there was a huge pagoda that was 1,000 meters tall. It had a total of 99 floors, and its entire body was dark gold, looking very dignified and holy. At the top of the pagoda, there was a huge golden dragon statue, shining under the sunlight. Even from 100 miles away, one could clearly see the statue, the golden dragon with its wings spread out. Chapter 1105. Long Zitian's ambition could be seen from the golden dragon statue on the pagoda in the city. He compared himself to a true dragon hiding in the abyss. He had been silently accumulating power, waiting for the right time to soar into the sky. After Ji Tianqing entered the Flying Dragon City, he rushed towards the Flying Dragon Palace while looking up at the pagoda in the center of the city. He sneered in his heart. A hidden dragon in the abyss, dreaming of soaring into the sky and seizing the position of emperor? He. Long Zitian, if you didn't provoke me, you might really have a chance to defeat Long Yunshao and seize the throne. But unfortunately, I will definitely not let you succeed. Your dream of becoming an emperor can only be fulfilled in your next life. An hour later, he strolled outside the Flying Dragon Palace. The Flying Dragon Palace was one of Long Zitian's palaces, and also his true lair. The palace occupied a vast area and was extremely luxurious. Its entire body was resplendent in gold and jade, and it was extremely noble and imposing. Outside the wide palace gate, there was a divine dragon statue on the left and right, and 18 silver-armored guards were guarding it. On the 30-meter-tall gate, the words Flying Dragon Palace were written in gold. The palace was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, making the atmosphere seem festive. There was clamorous music coming from the Flying Dragon Palace. Obviously, countless guests had already arrived at the Flying Dragon Palace and were chatting happily inside. When Ji Tianqing walked towards the palace gate, there was still a line at the entrance. More than a dozen well-dressed and well-spoken leaders of wealthy families, as well as young talents in high spirits, were entering the Flying Dragon Palace one after another. These people all brought their attendants and guards, walked to the entrance, showed their invitations to the old butler guarding the door, and offered him a congratulatory gift. Only Ji Tianqing's extravagance was very shabby. He did not have a luxurious carriage or spirit beast, nor did he have any attendants or guards. When the crowd saw him coming to the banquet alone, they could not help but size him up a few times, revealing playful smiles, and secretly discussing with each other. Ji Tianqing ignored the strange gazes of those people, took out the invitation and handed it to the old butler, and offered him a congratulatory gift. He didn't prepare the so-called congratulatory gift in advance. He took out 10,000 spirit stones from his spatial ring at the last minute to make up the number. Every time the old steward accepted a gift, he would shout loudly that a certain person had come to congratulate him on his birthday and present him with gifts such as treasures and rare treasures. Most of the leaders and young talents of the wealthy families would offer valuable resources, treasures, and rare antiques. Even ordinary spirit stones, elixirs, magic tools, and other resources were bound to be astonishing. When it was Ji Tianqing's turn, the old housekeeper's expression changed. He frowned and looked at him with sharp eyes. Then, he shouted with a poker face, "Ji Tianqing, territory lord of Tianshan region, is here to congratulate you on your birthday. Here is a gift of 10,000 spiritual stones." The moment the old steward shouted, all the guests outside the door stopped in their tracks, their faces full of astonishment. After everyone regained their senses, they all had complicated expressions on their faces as they looked at the entrance. Some people roared with laughter, some people discussed in disbelief, and some people had expressions of contempt and disdain as they whispered to each other. What did the old butler shout just now? Tianshan region lord? Ji Tianqing is here? Ji Tianqing? That's the youngest region lord, the number one genius of our family? The crown prince of the monarch mansion? Wow! Even he is here to congratulate the third prince? It seems that the third prince has a wide circle of friends and has a wide range of connections. I heard the old butler say 10,000 spiritual stones. Did I hear wrongly? I heard it too. Ji Tianqing is here to congratulate the third prince and only brought 10,000 spiritual stones as a gift. Ha 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 ha. Isn't this too funny? He is the region lord of Tianshan region, how can he be so stingy? Heh heh. This is going to be a good show. Ji Tianqing is obviously trying to embarrass the third prince. It seems that Ji Tianqing is not here with good intentions. All the guests discussed animatedly as they looked at Ji Tianqing with complicated expressions. After the old butler accepted the gift, he expressionlessly extended his hand and invited him into the palace. Ji Tianqing ignored everyone's strange gazes as he stepped through the door and entered the Flying Dragon Palace. Inside the door was a spacious courtyard. On the left was a beautiful garden with a pavilion, a small mountain, a small lake and a bamboo forest. Many young talents were gathered in groups of 3 to 5 as they strolled and chatted in the garden. On the right was a plaza where hundreds of guests were gathered. They were chatting and exchanging greetings with each other. The atmosphere was very lively. There were many white jade tea tables and tables placed around the plaza. On top of them were rich spirit fruits, pastries, spirit tea, wine, and so on. They were for the guests to use as they pleased. Many young and beautiful maids were respectfully guarding the plaza, serving the guests at any time. It was now afternoon and everyone could move around as they pleased. Tonight's banquet was the main event. Ji Tianqing calmly walked through the plaza and headed straight for the main hall at the back of the plaza. That magnificent main hall was the main venue of tonight's birthday banquet. Of course, only those with noble status could enter the main hall. Ordinary disciples of aristocratic families could only wait in the plaza. When Ji Tianqing entered the main hall, there were already hundreds of people gathered in the hall. They sat on both sides of the main hall and were chatting in low voices. There were more than 40 people on the left side. More than 30 of them were the leaders of first-rate aristocratic families, and more than 10 of them were the city lords of prosperous cities. Of course, the 4 experts sitting at the very top were the most distinguished. They were the 4 region lords of the human race's 9 regions. They were all at the 2nd or 3rd level of the soul cultivation realm. On the right side of the main hall sat more than 50 people. They were all famous young talents of the central state and the imperial princes of the monarch residence. Ji Tianqing looked over and saw a few people he recognized. There were the 3 imperial princes, Ling Yi Xian, Lu Zikang, and Lu Ziyuan. In addition, there was the chief disciple of Green Crane Valley Sword Faction, Di Jianqing, and the city lord of Smoke Wing City, Qian Shanjinwu. These 2 people had participated in the Heavenly Stellar Region Lord's election with him. They had interacted for a few days and knew each other. When Ji Tianqing sized up the crowd, everyone stopped talking and looked at him. Seeing him appear, Ling Yi Xian, Lu Zikong, Lu Ziyuan, and the other 8 imperial princes were stunned. Their eyes were a little complicated. Many governors and realm masters who hadn't seen Ji Tianqing before frowned slightly as they sized him up with scrutinizing eyes. As for the famous young talents, they looked at him with burning eyes. Many of them had fighting spirit surging in their eyes as if they wanted to compete with him. After a while, everyone came back to their senses. Many leaders, city lords, and imperial princes stood up to greet him. Even 2 of the 4 domain lords stood up and greeted him respectfully. Those 2 were the region lords of the Yangon region and the horizontal water region. Ji Tianqing returned their greetings. After a few words of greeting, he sat down beside them. Prince Tianqing's strength and methods are truly unfathomable and unbelievable. Prince Tianqing is indeed worthy of being the #1 genius of our clan. He can actually create such a miracle. It's said that the Devil clan's lair in the northern desert has a perilous terrain and numerous experts. It's extremely dangerous. I didn't expect Domain Lord Tianqing to be able to advance and retreat as he pleases. It's really miraculous. Not only were many city lords and patriarchs praising and admiring of Ji Tianqing, but they also admired him. Even horizontal Shui and Yangon territorial lord had a whole new level of respect for Ji Tianqing and flattered him. With Domain Lord Tianqing's current strength and methods, I'm afraid he's not only the #1 genius of our clan, but also the #1 genius of Middle Ground, right? No. It should be said that Domain Lord Tianqing is now the #1 genius of the continent. Domain Lord Tianqing is only 20 years old, but he already has such powerful strength and has created countless miracles. He's simply a peerless genius that only appears once in 1,000 years. Many people in the main hall praised Ji Tianqing and were in awe of him. However, more than half of them were rather critical of this, and their expressions were slightly disdainful. It was even to the extent that they muttered and criticized in secret. TSK. There are billions of martial artists in our clan, and countless geniuses emerge every year. However, how many of them can become top experts in the end? Who can sit in this main hall today is not a martial arts genius. So what if he's extremely talented? If he dies at a young age, won't everything be for naught? The root of humans' weakness is that they like to listen to hearsay and deliberately exaggerate things. Who would believe the so-called miracles and legends without seeing it with their own eyes? The real person is sitting here, and this group of people is still shamelessly flattering him. Aren't they ashamed? These people did not care about Ji Tianqing's presence at all and whispered to each other. Some people, while criticizing, kept glancing at Ji Tianqing to observe his expression and reaction. Ji Tianqing had been sitting indifferently. Even if he heard the people's discussion, his expression did not change and he completely ignored them. This was because he knew very well that most of the people sitting in the main hall were the third prince's subordinates and supporters. They were all hostile to him. At this time, the Shangchuan district leader, who was sitting above Ji Tianqing, suddenly thought of something and said seriously, as everyone knows, every time an expert advances to the soul-refining realm, there will be a vision of heaven and earth. The more talented a genius is, the more shocking and bizarre the vision of heaven and earth will be. When I broke through to the soul-refining realm, it was midnight. There was only starlight in the sky, and it disappeared after 100 breaths. I'm ashamed to say that the vision of heaven and earth that I caused when I advanced could only be considered as a normal vision. However, I heard that more than a year ago, when the third prince broke through to the soul-refining realm, there was a vision of golden lightning breaking through the sky. That night, a golden lightning tore through the sky and lit up the entire central plains. The 100 district leader, who was sitting beside him, nodded quickly and said with a smile, "Yes." At that time, I happened to be in Central Plains. That night, I saw the vision of golden lightning breaking through the sky with my own eyes. Such an earth-shattering vision is very rare. It hasn't appeared in the past 300 years. From this, we can see that the third prince's talent is the best in the past 300 years. His future is limitless. At this point, the 100 district leader deliberately glanced at Ji Tianqing and asked with a faint smile, "District leader Tianqing, you are recognized as the number one genius of our tribe. Now, you have also broken through to the soul-refining realm. With your talent, the vision of heaven and earth when you break through to the soul-refining realm should be earth-shattering and unprecedented, right?" There was no doubt that the 100 district leader was making trouble in public and taking the opportunity to provoke Ji Tianqing. Everyone in the main hall immediately quieted down and looked at Ji Tianqing in unison. Many people revealed curious and expectant looks, but even more people were waiting to see a good show, taking pleasure in other people's misfortune. Ji Tianqing had been resting with his eyes closed, as if he didn't pay attention to the discussions and conversations of the crowd. However, now that the 100 district leader had pointed the spearhead at him and the hundreds of people present were staring at him, he had to respond. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he slowly opened his eyes and glanced at the 100 district leader expressionlessly. He said calmly, "When I broke through to the soul-refining realm, I was in a secret realm and didn't notice any vision of heaven and earth." Hearing his reply, everyone in the hall revealed disappointed expressions and started whispering to each other. The 100 district leader suddenly smiled playfully and shook his head. "So that means that Tianqing didn't cause a vision of heaven and earth. I can't believe that when the number one genius of the human race broke through to the soul-refining realm, there wasn't even a vision of heaven and earth. Could it be that the heavens have forgotten about you?" When the people in the hall heard his words, they immediately burst into laughter. Their eyes were filled with mockery, and they were taking pleasure in his misfortune. Everyone knew that the vision of heaven and earth was a change of the way of heaven. It couldn't vary from person to person and was fair to all living things. Chapter 1107. When Ji Tianqing had broken through to the spirit-refining realm, it had been in the Eastern Mountain residence. After reaching the spirit-refining realm, he had only been observing the spirit sword and the changes in his own strength. He had indeed not seen any worldly phenomena. Afterwards, he had not paid much attention to this matter and had not felt anything unusual. Now that he thought about it, he also felt that it was a little strange. Logically speaking, with his innate talent and potential, he should have caused a world-shaking phenomenon. Could it be that the Eastern Mountain residence is an alternate dimension, and the Eastern Mountain sovereign has used extraordinary methods to isolate it from the world? Or could it be that the Tao of Kenshin that I cultivate is different from ordinary martial arts, which is why I did not cause any worldly phenomena? He silently analyzed in his heart and felt that there were only these two possibilities. When everyone in the hall saw that he was silent and deep in thought, they laughed even louder. Many young geniuses who were unconvinced also seemed to see the hope of surpassing him, and they all revealed looks of anticipation and pride. Ha ha ha, what number one genius of the human race! When breaking through to the spirit-refining realm, he did not even cause any worldly phenomena. I think his reputation is all exaggerated. Hee, looks like his genius title will stop at the spirit-refining realm. His potential has already been exhausted, and there won't be much progress in the future. I feel that he can only be considered the number one genius below the spirit-refining realm. As for above the spirit-refining realm, he can't even be compared to His Highness the Third Prince. Not only were the young geniuses discussing, the 100-stream Domain Lord and Shangchuan Domain Lord were also discussing with playful expressions. Looking at the current situation, the title of the number one genius of the human race will soon change hands. Yes, becoming famous early does not mean that your martial arts achievements will be high in the future. It is also possible that you will die prematurely, or disappear into the crowd. Ji Tianqing could ignore these young geniuses and did not care about any of their opinions. After all, he was not on the same level as them, just like how a lion would not pay attention to a mouse jumping in front of it. However, he could not ignore the criticisms of the 100-stream Domain Lord and Shangchuan Domain Lord, nor could he swallow his anger and pretend not to hear. He slowly turned his head to look at the 100-stream Domain Lord beside him, his eyes staring coldly at him as he said expressionlessly, 100-stream Domain Lord, you should shut up. His voice wasn't loud, yet it was low and sonorous, and it contained an indisputable dignity. The 100 Basin Master stopped talking and turned to look at him. With a mocking smile, he asked, Ji Tianqing, what do you mean? Was he angry out of humiliation? Or are you feeling guilty? Ji Tianqing smirked, revealing a sinister sneer. You're too noisy. I think you shouldn't be sitting next to me. You should change your seat. The 100 Basin Master was stunned. He frowned and asked, Ji Tianqing. What are you trying to do? This is His Highness the Third Prince's Flying Dragon Palace, you dare. Before he could finish, Ji Tianqing sneered and reached out his hand to grab his neck. If you're so lively, why don't you go outside and wait? As he spoke, a dazzling white light of divine soul gushed out of his palm, releasing an incomparably violent power. Although his palm didn't change, in everyone's eyes, it was like a dragon's claw, containing the power to destroy the heavens and earth. It was impossible to defend against. The 100 Basin Master sensed that something was wrong. He instinctively used his qi to defend himself and punched at Ling Xian's palm. However, Ling Xian's speed was extremely fast. With a swoosh, he grabbed the 100 Basin Master's neck. The 100 Basin Master's body froze on the spot. He was suppressed by an invisible divine soul and could not resist at all. Ji Tianqing picked him up easily like he was picking up a chick. He shook his hand and threw him to the entrance of the palace. Swoosh! The 100 Basin Master flew out in an arc in the air and landed at the entrance of the palace. With a plop, he hit the ground and rolled a few times before coming to a stop. When he got up from the ground, his hair was disheveled, his golden crown was askew, and his clothes were untidy. He looked extremely embarrassed. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he was thrown out of the palace by Ji Tianqing. This was a great humiliation. He had never experienced such humiliation in his life. At that moment, the 100 Basin Master was so angry that his entire body shook like a sieve. His face turned red and purple, and the blood in his body flowed in reverse. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Ji Tianqing. You've gone too far. The 100 Basin Master roared in exasperation. He clenched his fists so tightly that they made cracking sounds. His entire body emitted a murderous aura. The hundreds of nobles and young elites in the hall were all dumbfounded. Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Their bodies were so stiff that they looked like they had turned into stone. The palace was silent. No one would have thought that Ji Tianqing would be so arrogant and powerful. His way of dealing with criticism and provocation was so simple and violent. The Shanchuan Territory Master came to his senses and was instantly enraged. He pointed at Ji Tianqing and scolded, Ji Tianqing. You've got guts. Today is the third prince's birthday. How dare you cause trouble in public? You're insulting the third prince. The 100 Basin Master is a loyal official of the imperial court. You've been serving the imperial court for hundreds of years. As the new territory master, you're a junior. How dare you disregard seniority? The Shanchuan territory master was still haranguing Ji Tianqing for his crimes. Ji Tianqing slowly turned his head and looked at him with a sharp gaze. He stretched out a finger and sneered at him. I only need one finger to press you to the ground. Do you believe me? The Shanchuan territory master was at a loss for words. He swallowed all his resentment and anger back into his stomach. He didn't dare to make another sound. He was furious, but he didn't dare to do anything. He could only suppress it in his heart. He had seen Ji Tianqing's terrifying strength. How could he still dare to provoke Ji Tianqing? He didn't want to follow in the footsteps of the 100 Basin Master. He didn't want to be defeated by Ji Tianqing in public and lose face. Since he couldn't defeat Ji Tianqing, and he didn't dare to provoke Ji Tianqing, he could only swallow his anger and suppress all his anger and humiliation in the bottom of his heart. He glared at Ji Tianqing angrily. He was so angry that his body trembled. He couldn't calm down for a long time. Ji Tianqing ignored him and the 100 Basin Master. He sat down leisurely and continued to rest with his eyes closed. Looking at his calm and leisurely expression, it was as if nothing had happened. Everyone in the main hall was once again shocked by his arrogance and strength. They were dumbfounded and speechless. Oh my God! How can this guy be so strong? The 100 Basin Master, who is at LV3 soul cultivation stage, couldn't even fight back and was thrown out in public. He's too arrogant, too arrogant. Not only did he throw the 100 Basin Master out of the door, but he also said that he could defeat the Shangchuan Territory Master with one finger. Oh my God. I've lived for 300 years, and this is the first time I've seen such an arrogant person. He's crazy. The rich and powerful in the hall were so shocked that their hearts were beating wildly. They exclaimed in their hearts. The young elites were even more shocked. They were so shocked by Ji Tianqing that their mouths and tongues were dry. Their blood was boiling, and their faces were flushed with excitement. Chapter 1108. Everything happened too suddenly, and the scene was too explosive. It took a long time for everyone to recover from their shock. No one would have thought that just a moment ago, everyone was still criticizing Ji Tianqing, discussing and mocking him without restraint. In the next moment, he threw the 100 Domain Lord out of the door with one hand and scared the Shangchuan Territorial Lord away with one sentence. Such a simple and violent method successfully shocked everyone. The two territorial lords were so humiliated that they vomited blood on the spot, but they did not dare to attack him. They could only run out of the hall like stray dogs with their tails between their legs. The other wealthy families and young elites did not even have the right to challenge Ji Tianqing, so how could they dare to make irresponsible remarks? The main hall quieted down. Everyone was silent, and they looked straight ahead. Even if they were shocked and could not help but discuss with their companions, they did so secretly through voice transmission, not daring to make a sound. After all, Ji Tianqing had already thrown the 100 Domain Lord out of the door because he thought he was too noisy. If the others dared to make any noise, they would be crushed to death by Ji Tianqing. If it were others, it would be fine. No matter how strong they were, at least they had to abide by the law and respect the ways of the world. However, Ji Tianqing was a temperamental and unrestrained guy. He was not afraid of anything, and everything he did was earth-shattering. This guy even dared to barge into the Devil Emperor's lair alone. Was there anything in the world that he did not dare to do? Many wealthy families and young elites were guessing that even if the third prince was present, Ji Tianqing would not give him any face. Thinking of this, everyone was very afraid of Ji Tianqing. They were incomparably respectful. The wealthy families sitting near him were restless, as if they were sitting on pins and needles. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing did not cause any trouble. He had been resting with his eyes closed. On the surface, he looked calm, but in fact, he was secretly releasing his soul energy, extending it to the surroundings to investigate the situation. In just 15 minutes, he had investigated more than half of the Flying Dragon Palace. He had a clear understanding of the Flying Dragon Palace's layout and layout. His soul energy found that the 100 Domain Lord and the Shangchuan Territorial Lord did not leave the Flying Dragon Palace after leaving the hall. The two of them passed through several courtyards and entered the third courtyard. Of course, the two's expressions were extremely ugly. They were furious to the extreme, cursing as they walked. There was an exquisite and luxurious palace in the third courtyard. That palace was called the Hidden Dragon Palace Hall. It seemed to be Long Zai Tian's bedroom, and its defenses were extremely tight. Not only did the Hidden Dragon Palace have a powerful soul-grade array formation, but there were also over 100 guards guarding it. No one could get close to it. The two domain lords arrived at the entrance of the Hidden Dragon Palace. After showing the domain lord's golden seal, they were led into the palace by the guards. Originally, the Hidden Dragon Palace was protected by a soul-grade array. Even a soul refinement realm expert would not be able to see what was going on inside the palace. However, Ji Tianqing's soul was different from ordinary cultivators. The power of his soul was incomparably strong, comparable to that of a cultivator at the 6th level of the spirit refining realm. He was able to break through the grand formation of the hidden dragon palace and investigate the situation inside the palace with all his might. At the head of the hall sat a tall, burly, and handsome young man with a resolute face. This person wore a golden robe with dragon and phoenix patterns and a golden dragon crown on his head. His pair of phoenix eyes contained a deep and vast meaning that could see through people's hearts. Ji Tianqing was no stranger to this person. He recognized him at a glance. This was the third prince, Long Zai Tian. The 100 Flow Domain Lord and the Shangchuan Domain Lord entered the hall and stood still. After paying their respects to Tianqing, they recounted what had just happened with a face full of shame and indignation. After Long Zai Tian heard what had happened, a trace of anger appeared on his face. His eyes surged with a cold light. He frowned and thought for a moment, then opened his mouth to appease the 2 domain lords. He said in a low and dignified voice, calm down your anger. Ji Tianqing has always been arrogant and overbearing. You provoked and insulted him in public, so of course he would have such a reaction. But don't worry, I have already made arrangements and preparations. He dares to come to Flying Dragon City, so it's obvious that he wants to humiliate me. How can I let him be so arrogant? Later, you two go to another courtyard and wait until tonight's banquet begins. Try not to meet Ji Tianqing face to face. As for Ji Tianqing, I will teach him a lesson. Even if he doesn't die, he will lose a layer of skin. Hearing Long Zai Tian's words, the 2 domain lords' anger subsided. They hurriedly complimented, Your Highness is far-sighted. You will definitely punish that thief. With Your Highness' resourcefulness, sooner or later you will get rid of that bastard and put him to death. Long Zai Tian nodded slightly and waved his hand at the 2, indicating that they should leave and rest. After the 2 domain lords left the hidden dragon palace, Long Zai Tian's face became gloomy. It became darker and darker, and the cold light in his eyes became sharper and sharper. Ji Tianqing, oh Ji Tianqing, I didn't expect your lowly life to be so tenacious. You can actually live until now. When you and Yunyao got married, I used all my means and schemes to set up an inescapable net in Central State. I wanted to turn your wedding into a funeral. Who would have thought that the demon emperor would suddenly descend and personally attack the wedding's pillar of support, kidnapping Yunyao? I thought that you would definitely die if you broke into the northern desert alone to save Yunyao. It was impossible for you to survive. I didn't expect that not only did you come back alive, but you also saved Yunyao. Long Zai Tian muttered to himself. He secretly clenched his fists and cursed in a cold and resentful tone, Despicable little bastard, I can't let you run wild anymore. This time you came to Flying Dragon City, I won't let you leave alive. After that, he pondered in silence for a while. Then, he waved his hand at the corner of the hall and ordered, Tian Du, go and get that thing for me. In the dark corner of the hall, there was a 2-meter-tall, red-haired young man standing tall. This young man looked like a demon. His whole body was muscular, his aura was fierce and wild, and his pupils were blood-red. He looked exactly like Tuoba Roy, but in fact, he was the combination of the heaven-swallowing beast and Tuoba Roy, the Tian Du puppet. When the Tian Du puppet heard Long Zai Tian's order, he quickly bowed and said yes. Then, he turned and walked to the corner of the hall. On the stone wall covered with patterns, he cast a spell and unlocked a seal. Swoosh! A stone door opened on the wall, revealing a dark entrance to a secret room. The Tian Du puppet stepped into the secret room and disappeared into the darkness. After about 100 breaths, the Tian Du puppet walked out of the secret room and returned to the hall with a black iron box the size of a wash basin. He held the black iron box with both hands and presented it to Long Zai Tian. Long Zai Tian took the iron box and put it into his spatial ring. He instructed the Tian Du puppet, you stay here and prevent anyone from approaching the secret room. I need to make a trip to the main hall to greet the guests. Chapter 1109. Everything that happened in the Hidden Dragon Palace was clearly investigated by Ji Tianqing. His sole power, saw the 2 domain lords and Long Zai Tian, and also heard their conversation. He had previously guessed that the 100 Flow Domain Lord and Shangchuan Domain Lord deliberately provoked and ridiculed him, most likely because they were instructed by Long Zai Tian. After listening to the conversation between the three of them, he was even more certain of his guess. In addition, he also heard the conversation between Long Zai Tian and the heavenly puppet clearly. When the heavenly puppet opened the array on the wall and opened the door of the secret room, he carefully stared at the heavenly puppet's movements and memorized the method to break the array. His keen intuition told him that the secret room was very important to Long Zai Tian, and must be hiding treasures or secrets. As for the mysterious box that the heavenly puppet took out from the secret room, he only paid a little attention to it and did not take it too seriously. In his opinion, the thing that Long Zai Tian was willing to take out to show to the public must not be too important. The real core treasure and secret must be hidden in the most hidden secret room. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing made up his mind to find the right opportunity to explore the secret room and see if he could find any clues. He sat in the main hall for about half a quarter of an hour before he heard the voices of the guards outside the door. "Greetings, Your Highness." The dozen or so guards guarding the door all knelt down in unison, and their tone was very respectful. The main hall was quiet, and hearing the voices outside the door, everyone looked at the door. Under everyone's gaze, the third Prince Long Zai Tian, dressed in a golden robe and wearing a golden dragon crown, stepped into the main hall. Behind him was a Sky Origin Realm Guard commander, wearing a golden armor, with a dignified face, and holding a gray-black treasure box in his hands. Seeing Long Zai Tian arrive, many guests breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly got up to salute. "Greetings, Your Highness." "Greetings, Your Highness." Not only many young elites and wealthy nobles, even the Horizontal Water Domain Lord and Yong'an Domain Lord stood up and bowed to Long Zai Tian. Only Ji Tianqing remained seated. His expression was calm as he indifferently sized up Long Zai Tian and the mysterious treasure box in the hands of the guard commander. Long Zai Tian nodded with a smile on his face, and waved his hand to indicate that everyone was excused and seated. His performance was impeccable. Not only did he display the majesty and nobility of the imperial clan, but he also appeared amiable and approachable. Everyone had a good impression of him. Under the gazes of the crowd, he walked to the head of the hall and sat down on the golden throne inlaid with jade. The guard commander held the grayish-black treasure box and stood upright beside him. Long Zai Tian looked around. His gaze swept across everyone and was full of presence. Even though his eyes swept over Ji Tianqing and saw that there were 2 empty seats beside Ji Tianqing, he didn't seem to notice any clues and his expression remained the same. After a while, he opened his mouth and said, "Everyone, today is this king's 40th birthday. Thank you for taking the time to come to this banquet. It is this king's honor that everyone can come to Flying Dragon City. It also brings light to Flying Dragon Palace. This king has not held a birthday banquet for 10 years. Today, I will take this opportunity to gather with everyone and get to know each other. After all, everyone is the pillar of my clan, the mainstay of the central region." Long Zai Tian said a lot of polite words, making everyone smile. The atmosphere in the hall also became lively and cheerful. A few days ago, a big shot learned that today is this king's birthday and sent a congratulatory gift to this king in advance. Unfortunately, that big shot is busy with government affairs and can't come to this banquet. This king is quite regretful. Hearing his words, everyone showed a look of interest and guessed who the big shot he was talking about was. The Horizontal Water Domain Lord's status was higher, so he asked tentatively, "May I ask Your Highness the third prince, the big shot you are talking about, is it Murong family lord?" Long Zai Tian frowned slightly, but immediately returned to normal. Shaking his head with a smile, he said, "It seems that everyone is very interested in that big shot. Although this is not the main point, since everyone has doubts, this king will say it directly. That big shot is the divine general who guards the East Sea." The Horizontal Water Domain Lord suddenly realized and quickly nodded, "So it is that big shot." Ji Tianqing was expressionless, but when he heard Long Zai Tian's words, his eyes flashed with a touch of doubt. The divine general who guards the East Sea? Isn't that Xiao Han? Could it be that Xiao Han has a close relationship with Long Zai Tian? No. I have interacted with Xiao Han before. This person's style of doing things is upright, fair and strict. He doesn't look like someone who is in cahoots with Long Zai Tian. Moreover, if he was in cahoots with Long Zai Tian, he wouldn't have helped me enter the East Sea Imperial Court. At this time, Long Zai Tian continued, the gift sent by the Divine General is very special. It was left behind by a powerhouse 1,000 years ago. It is very mysterious. Unfortunately, this congratulatory gift was placed in a treasure box, and there was an ancient formation seal on the box. The skilled craftsmen and formation Dao grandmasters under my command racked their brains and methods, but they still couldn't crack the array and open the treasure box. Chapter 11:10. Everyone in the hall began to whisper to each other. Many people were watching from the sidelines, but there were also some who were eager to give it a try because they were confident in their attainments in formations. A young man in a white robe was the first to stand up. He cupped his hands towards Long Zai Tian and said, Your Highness the Third Prince, since all the fellow Taoists and seniors are watching from the sidelines, this humble one is willing to try to break the formation first, throwing a brick to attract jade. Seeing that this person was about to make a move, everyone in the hall looked at him and began to discuss. This is the genius of the Yi family in Sioux City. He has reached the 6th level of Sky Origin stage at such a young age. He is quite famous in the Central State. It is said that this Yi Feng is not only a martial arts genius, but also an array genius. A few months ago, he fought with an array master and defeated him. Yes. I have also heard of that matter. That is an array master who has been famous for over 100 years. Yi Feng is indeed very talented. His future is limitless. Many guests in the hall, after learning about the background of the young man in white robe, let out a burst of exclamations. Their eyes were full of expectation. Long Zaitian nodded slightly and ordered the guard to place the mysterious box in the middle of the hall, on a white jade table. Yi Feng walked to the table and showed a confident smile. He pretended to be modest to everyone and then began to cast the array to break the seal. His feet moved in a mysterious way, and his hands formed a spell. He constantly waved his hands and shot out streaks of dazzling light into the box. His pace kept increasing as he walked in circles around the white jade table. His hands moved faster and faster, dazzling the eyes of the people. Everyone in the hall stared at him, waiting to see how he would break the array. Many powerful people saw Yi Feng's array skills and nodded their heads to express their appreciation. The young men all had a look of envy and admiration. Even the 2 area leaders had a whole new level of respect for Yi Feng's performance. They whispered to each other and nodded their heads in praise. Only Ji Tianqing did not have any reaction. He looked at the mysterious box expressionlessly, completely ignoring Yi Feng. Unknowingly, half an hour had passed. Yi Feng was still circling around the white jade table, desperately casting a spell and injecting his majestic true essence into the mysterious box. He had used almost all of his means, but the mysterious treasure box was still motionless, and the sealing array did not loosen in the slightest. After a long period of continuous casting and a high-intensity infusion of true essence, his true essence was quickly exhausted, and his strength was becoming weaker and weaker. Everyone could clearly see that his face was getting paler and paler. Many people saw the clues and realized that he was using a special method to break the array. They all exclaimed and their hearts were filled with anticipation. However, this head of the family had just started to cast the array when he touched the seal on the treasure box. Swoosh! The mysterious treasure box lit up with a dazzling flame and exploded with a violent and terrifying power. It immediately sent this person flying and he fell to the ground in a sorry state. When he crawled up from the ground, his hair and clothes were burned and curled. He looked extremely sorry and caused everyone to roar with laughter. Without a doubt, this head of the family also failed. He was also hit by the backlash of the seal and injured his internal organs. Amidst the laughter of the crowd, he left the stage in humiliation. When the hall quieted down, no one dared to try to break the array again. Everyone was watching, discussing, and exclaiming at the power of the seal. Long Zai Tian looked around the hall and looked at the Yong'an region lord with a playful gaze. He said with a smile, "It seems that only cultivators in the spirit refining realm can break the seal of the treasure box. Region lord, I have heard that your array skills are superb and that you are a world-famous array master. It seems that this seat's gift must belong to you. You must not refuse." Suddenly, everyone turned their heads to look at the Yong'an region lord. The Yong'an region lord's expression changed. His heart skipped a beat and he became restless. In reality, his array skills could only be considered excellent. He was definitely not a world-famous array master. But among the guests present, there were only 3 spirit refining realm cultivators. Other than Ji Tianqing and the Lord of Horizontal Water Realm, his array skills were the strongest. Long Zai Tian asked him to break the array in front of everyone. This was clearly to embarrass him. Thinking of this, he looked expressionlessly at the mysterious treasure box and thought to himself, "This guy Long Zai Tian really doesn't have good intentions. He knows that I intend to get closer to the emperor, so he deliberately suppressed me in front of everyone to make me lose face. If I don't dare to break the array, he will take the opportunity to do me a favor and rope me in." Even 2 array Dao grandmasters were unable to break the array, and he actually did not put it in his eyes? Aren't you being too arrogant? Everyone, let's wait and see. I think he'll definitely succeed. After all, he's at the soul refinement realm. While everyone was discussing, Long Zai Tian's face was also gloomy as he stared at Ji Tianqing, his eyes flashing with a cold light. Obviously, his target this time was the Yong'an region lord. He wanted to use some means to pull the Yong'an region lord under his command. However, he did not expect that Ji Tianqing would interfere and ruin his plan. How could he not be angry? Ji Tianqing ignored everyone's reaction and walked to the side of the white jade table. Under everyone's gaze, he calmly raised his hands and made a gesture. He shot out rays of white spiritual light into the mysterious treasure box. Seeing this scene, many people came to a sudden realization, and another burst of discussion broke out. Ji Tianqing is using the power of his spiritual soul. It seems that the sealing array is indeed a soul level one. Only the power of his spiritual soul can break it. Hey! Why does Ji Tianqing's method of breaking the array look so strange? I've never seen it before. Yes. Just now, when the 2 array Dao grandmasters performed the method of breaking the array, they had to coordinate with their steps. Why is Ji Tianqing standing still? Everyone was puzzled, curious, and surprised. At this moment, a white-haired old man stared at Ji Tianqing and observed him for a moment. Suddenly, his face was full of amazement, and he said excitedly, "Ji Tianqing is indeed the number 1 genius of our clan. Even his technique is so novel and original. He is standing still like a towering mountain. He doesn't need any fancy method. He just uses force to break force and technique to break technique. He has surpassed the realm of array Dao Grandmaster and reached the realm of returning to simplicity and tracing back to the origin. This is a real array Dao Grandmaster." This white-haired old man was a well-known array Dao Grandmaster in the Central Plains. He had a high prestige. Previously, many people were looking forward to him breaking the array. Unfortunately, the 3rd prince had personally asked the Yong'an region lord to do it. His evaluation of Ji Tianqing suddenly enlightened everyone. They were full of admiration and kept nodding their heads in admiration. Very quickly, a quarter of an hour passed. Ji Tianqing performed the spell calmly. His hands moved smoothly like moving clouds and flowing water. Soon, the mysterious treasure box lit up with a dazzling golden light. The 18 layers of seals that sealed the treasure box were unraveled like silk being peeled out of a cocoon. They shattered and dissipated continuously. In just a short 15 minutes, all 18 layers of the seal had been broken by him, leaving not a single one behind. Swoosh! The dazzling golden light flashed and disappeared quickly. The seals on the mysterious treasure box disappeared and it returned to its original dull gray color. Ji Tianqing stopped performing the spell. He stretched out his hands and pressed on the hidden buckle of the treasure box. He pulled gently and the treasure box opened with a click. Seeing this, everyone in the hall opened their eyes wide and looked incredulous. Waves of exclamations and discussions erupted from the crowd, causing the quiet hall to immediately become clamorous. Oh my God! He really broke the seal. This is incredible. He only used a short 15 minutes to unlock the seal on the treasure box. Look at how relaxed he was when he performed the spell. It was like moving clouds and flowing water. He really broke the seal easily. I didn't expect that. Not only is Ji Tianqing the #1 martial arts genius of our clan, he is also an array grandmaster. Too monstrous. No wonder he is so arrogant. This is the capital of his arrogance. Such a talented and shocking genius is really hard to come by in 1,000 years. In the past, I always heard about Ji Tianqing's legendary deeds. I always thought it was just hearsay and exaggerated. Today, I saw his methods with my own eyes. Only then did I know how stupid my previous thoughts were. This guy is really too strong. The young elites in the hall all showed expressions of surprise, envy, and jealousy. Many people were so excited that their faces were flushed red. They worshipped Ji Tianqing and saw him as a target to learn from and imitate. Even those older rich and powerful people admired Ji Tianqing to the point of prostrating themselves on the ground. Only Long Zai Tian's face was very gloomy. He frowned and no one knew what he was thinking. Ji Tianqing also ignored the cheers, exclamations and flattery of the crowd. He was using his soul to communicate with Burial of Heaven. Chapter 11-12. In fact, before Ji Tianqing broke the seal, Burial of Heaven had warned him. The reason why he could break the seal so easily and quickly was because Burial of Heaven had told him how to break it. At that time, the situation was urgent, so he didn't ask for the reason and directly broke the seal. Now that the seal had been broken and the treasure box had been opened, he obviously had to ask clearly. Burial of Heaven said in a low voice, "The seal on the treasure box is called the 18 Constellations Illusory Sun Formation. It's a formation created by Kenshin." Hearing this explanation, Ji Tianqing suddenly understood. But he felt more and more puzzled and asked, why would a formation created by Kenshin appear on this treasure box? Could it be that he set it up himself? Could it be that the things in this treasure box were put in by him? Burial of Heaven said with certainty, of course not. Kenshin taught the 18 Constellations Illusory Sun Formation to 2 of his followers. I suspect that this treasure box was sealed by one of his disciples. Kenshin's followers? Ji Tianqing's eyes suddenly lit up, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Long Zaitian just said that this treasure box was a gift from Divine General Donglin. Since that's the case, I have to find time to visit Shaohan. At this time, everyone in the hall urged Ji Tianqing to open the treasure box and see what treasure was inside. So, he hurriedly gathered his thoughts and reached out to open the lid of the treasure box. The moment the treasure box was opened, a dazzling starlight bloomed from the treasure box, illuminating the entire hall in a dazzling silver. The surging and mighty power of the stars, along with a cold and invisible force, spread out in all directions. Suddenly, the entire hall was enveloped by the silver starlight, and became cool and quiet. The guests present all trembled, their minds and spiritual senses were cleansed, and their spirits were shaken, and their emotions were calmed down. This made everyone realize that the mysterious treasure in the treasure box had the effect of cleansing the soul, and was greatly beneficial to martial artists' cultivation. Everyone revealed curious and expectant eyes, staring at the treasure box, and couldn't wait to see the treasure inside. Ji Tianqing was also full of anticipation. Looking into the treasure box, he saw 2 half-foot-tall crystal bottles in the treasure box. The transparent crystal bottles were filled with silver fine sand. Every grain of fine sand was uniform, shining with the brilliance of the stars, and contained a vast and majestic power. The fine sand in the 2 crystal bottles, who knew how many grains of fine sand there were, contained incomparably terrifying power of the stars. When Ji Tianqing saw the fine sand in the crystal bottles clearly, his eyebrows raised, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. It's actually star sand. That's great. Buried Heaven's voice rang in his head as well. He sounded rather excited as he said, "That's right, Tianqing. You've picked up a treasure today. This is the star sand from the star of the outer space. If you can obtain the other 2 materials, it won't be long before the divine sword is restored to the primordial spirit level, comparable to a divine artifact." Of the many guests in the hall, there were some experienced and knowledgeable powerhouses that recognized the star sand in the crystal bottles, and they all let out gasps of disbelief. Wow! It's actually the legendary star sand. No wonder it contains such a terrifying and vast power of the stars. Star sand, that is a top refining material. It's said that it can be used to refine divine artifacts. The last time someone auctioned star sand in Central State City was 100 years ago. For the last 100 years, this treasure has been priceless, and it's hard to find. The value of star sand cannot be measured with spirit stones. Even an ancient family might not have such a treasure. Heavens! Divine General Dong Lin is too extravagant. He actually took out star sand as a congratulatory gift to His Highness the Third Prince. The Third Prince said before that this congratulatory gift was sealed in the treasure box, and even Divine General Dong Lin didn't know what was inside. If Divine General Dong Lin knew that the treasure box contained star sand, his intestines would probably turn green from regret, right? Everyone look, His Highness the Third Prince's face doesn't look too good. If he knew that the congratulatory gift was star sand, he wouldn't have taken it out as a prize, right? AI. This time Ji Tianqing is really lucky. Look at his smiling face, he really picked up a treasure. The powerhouses and young elites in the hall understood the preciousness and rarity of star sand. They were all excited to the extreme, and were incomparably envious of Ji Tianqing. Long Zai Tian's face was also somewhat dark. His fists in his sleeves were secretly clenched, and he was so angry that he gnashed his teeth. Just as everyone had guessed, he also didn't know that the treasure box contained star sand. He originally thought that Divine General Dong Lin was just a casual acquaintance with him, and they didn't have any friendship at all. It was impossible for him to take out such a precious gift. Therefore, he pretended to be generous and took out this congratulatory gift as a prize to liven up the atmosphere. But he never would have thought that the treasure box contained the priceless star sand. This time, he could be considered to have lifted a rock and smashed it on his own foot. He had given away a priceless treasure for nothing. The most important thing was that the person who had obtained this priceless treasure was his life and death enemy, Ji Tianqing. This made him so angry that he almost vomited blood, as if he had eaten a fly. But in public, in front of all the guests, he still had to maintain his poise and bearing. He couldn't show any signs of regret, and he couldn't go back on his words. What was even more infuriating was that Ji Tianqing had taken advantage of him and was still acting innocent. He kept the star sand and the treasure box into his interspatial ring. He even cupped his hands towards Long Zai Tian and said with a smile, I didn't expect the third prince to be so generous. It's really inconceivable. This seat thanks you. This priceless treasure will be accepted by this seat. I hope the third prince won't go back on his words. Long Zai Tian was so angry in his heart that he couldn't wait to tear him into pieces. But under the watchful eyes of everyone, he could only endure the pain and anger in his heart. He barely squeezed out a smile and pretended to be generous. Territorial Lord Tianqing must be joking. This seat will definitely not go back on his words. You can break the seal of the treasure box, so this treasure is naturally yours. Ji Tianqing nodded in agreement and said, well, this is more like the demeanor of the third prince. After saying that, he turned around with a smile and returned to his seat. Hundreds of people in the main hall looked at him with envy, and they were still discussing and exclaiming. The Yangon region lord and the horizontal water lord looked at Long Zai Tian with strange eyes, and then looked at Ji Tianqing. They muttered in their hearts. Today is obviously the third prince's birthday. He should be the focus of the audience. How could Ji Tianqing steal the limelight and become dim? Ji Tianqing, this guy's performance today is really too eye-catching. Not only did he suppress the two region lords, but he also humiliated the two region lords and made the third prince vomit blood. Chapter 11-13. The matter of cracking the mysterious box was just a small episode before the banquet. The third prince's original intention was to use the mysterious box to liven up the atmosphere and win over the Yong and region lord. However, the final result was beyond his expectations. He not only lost the priceless treasure, the star sand, but also lost the opportunity to win over the Yong and region lord. The most infuriating thing was that the star sand was obtained by Ji Tianqing. He would rather give this gift to a stranger than see it fall into the hands of Ji Tianqing. In this way, he could be considered to have suffered a double loss and suffered a huge loss. After the matter was over, he casually found an excuse and left. The rest of the people stayed in the main hall and were still discussing the previous matter. Ji Tianqing became the focus of the whole banquet. He was envied by everyone and became the core of everyone's discussion. The Yong and region lord, the horizontal water lord, the city lords and the powerhouses all clustered around Ji Tianqing. They constantly complimented and flattered him. They admired and respected him very much. Even some young talents gathered their courage and came over to pay their respects to Ji Tianqing. They wanted to be familiar with him. At least, when these people went back, they could boast to their peers that they had met Ji Tianqing and had a warm conversation with him. For them, this was not only something to brag about, but also a supreme honor. Ji Tianqing's reaction was dull. He politely declined the flattery and praise of the people and did not respond. Unknowingly, 2 hours passed. It was already late, and the sun was setting in the evening. The main hall was bustling with noise for a long time. Then, a guard commander entered the main hall and loudly announced that the banquet was about to begin. Everyone quieted down and gradually calmed down. Not long after, a group of young and beautiful maids served all kinds of delicious food and wine and placed them on the long narrow tables in front of the guests. In the square outside the main hall, big red lanterns were lit and a raging bonfire was lit. There were also countless delicious food, wine, fruits and pastries placed on the long narrow tables around the square for the guests to enjoy. There were also some graceful dancers and singers playing beautiful music in the square and dancing gracefully. The atmosphere inside and outside the main hall was jubilant. Countless guests were singing and dancing, celebrating Long Zitian's birthday. Long Zitian also brought the housekeeper and the imperial bodyguard commander back to the main hall. He sat down at the head of the table and accompanied everyone to the banquet. After a period of adjustment, his state of mind and expression had returned to normal. He had a smile on his face, and his expression was as calm as usual. There was not the slightest bit of anger or depression, as if nothing had happened in the afternoon. Moreover, when he was chatting and drinking with everyone, he would intentionally or unintentionally glance at Ji Tianqing, his eyes flashing with a mocking sneer. Ji Tianqing had been drinking silently, occasionally listening to the conversations of the crowd. He inadvertently discovered Long Zitian's abnormality, and slightly frowned, thinking in his heart, Long Zitian, this guy, has a sinister and despicable appearance, don't tell me he wants to use some scheme again? He sensed that Long Zitian had bad intentions, so he secretly raised his vigilance. Unknowingly, an hour passed. The lively and noisy banquet was about to come to an end. Many guests were slightly tipsy and left the banquet, returning to their residence to rest. The Yangon region ruler followed Ji Tianqing to leave the banquet. After leaving the main hall, they were led by the imperial bodyguard captain to rest in the courtyard. Under the instructions of Long Zitian, the imperial bodyguard captain arranged for the two to stay in the plum blossom courtyard. There were a total of 3 people living in this small house. In addition to the 2 of them, there was also the horizontal water domain lord. Ji Tianqing and the Yangon region ruler walked together. After returning to the courtyard, they said goodbye to each other and returned to their rooms. When Ji Tianqing entered the room, he was shocked by the scene in the room. His residence was a set of rooms. In the middle was a spacious living room, and on both sides were a study and a bedroom. The back of the study was connected to the back garden, and the bedroom was also connected to a secret room for practice. The room was decorated very luxuriously. It looked splendid with gold and jade, and there was a light red light burning, revealing a charming atmosphere that made one's heart itch. Moreover, there were bronze incense burners in the living room and bedroom, burning with a refreshing and enchanting fragrance. That kind of invisible fragrance quietly seeped into the mind and soul, making one's heart full of restlessness and desire. Their whole body would heat up, and they couldn't wait to find a few beauties to quench their thirst. Ji Tianqing sensed that something was wrong. He frowned and looked at the situation in the bedroom. He saw that on the wide wooden bed surrounded by white gauze curtains, there was a red brocade quilt embroidered with mandarin ducks. A beautiful girl with skin as tender as jade, wearing only a red dudu, was lying in the quilt, leaning on the bed, looking at him with blurred eyes. "Young master, you're finally back. I've been waiting for you for a long time." The beautiful and delicate young girl slightly raised her body, revealing her long black hair that draped over her fair and delicate shoulders like a waterfall. She had a shy and timid posture, and her charming face was a little red as she looked at Ji Tianqing, her eyes full of admiration and desire. If it was any normal man, in this kind of restless environment, seeing such a breathtaking beauty, they would let their imagination run wild. Especially when that beautiful girl put on a posture of letting him do whatever he wanted, and let him enjoy her to his heart's content. This made people unable to restrain the prairie fire in their hearts, and they couldn't wait to pounce on her and enjoy her to their heart's content. However, Ji Tianqing resisted the restlessness in his soul, and his heart was calm. He looked at her with clear and cold eyes, and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you? Why are you in my room?" That charming girl was also stunned for a moment, and immediately revealed a trace of a young and charming smile, and explained, "Young master, I'm here to serve you. Other than this servant, the other guests in these courtyards all have their own personal attendants. They are all 1 in 1,000 beauties." The meaning of the young girl's words was obviously hinting to Ji Tianqing that he didn't need to feel embarrassed, as every guest had a beautiful woman to accompany them. However, Ji Tianqing frowned, and expressionlessly said to her, "I'm not resting, and still need to meditate and cultivate. Please leave." That charming girl obviously didn't expect him to be such an unromantic person, and immediately revealed a wronged expression. Timidly lowering her head, she said, "Young master, could it be that you think I'm a prostitute, and think I'm not clean? You've misunderstood, I'm also the young miss of an official's family, and until now, I've still been a virgin for 16 years, and I've never been touched by a strange man. Moreover, I'm just following the master's orders. If you let me leave, the master will punish me, and I'll be punished." Saying this, she lifted the red brocade quilt, and lifted a pair of white and tender, slender and long legs. She walked in front of Ji Tianqing and knelt down. She stretched out her smooth arms, and with her soft and boneless hands, hugged Ji Tianqing's legs, and bitterly begged, "Young master, how can you bear to let me be tortured and punished?" You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.